Other than cheating, what secret do you keep from your significant other to prevent upsetting them? Story 1. The first Christmas after I got together with my partner, he brought me a beautiful opal necklace. He knew it was my favorite stone. I suspect he paid quite a bit. He's mad proud of the thing and loves to see me wear it. He told me that when he brought it, he paid for a slightly smaller opal. The shop worker accidentally grabbed the wrong one, so he got an upgrade to a bigger opal for free. The partner also has a whole thing against fake stones and jewelry. He thinks it's tacky, horrible, dishonest, etc. Long story short, what he doesn't realize is that my beautiful opal was a fake. See, I suspect he paid for a real opal, but he probably wasn't meant to see that. Oops. When the shop owner grabbed the bigger one, I suspect they ran a little con on him, charged him for a smaller real one and grabbed the larger fake instead. He thought the accident was in his favor, so he never complained. I only know one. The play of color and size in the opal I have would have cost a small house deposit if it had been real, and there's no way he bought that as a uni student when we first got together. And 2, a real opal would never have stood up to the wear and tear I had put it through. I literally never take it off. It comes for me on runs, in the salt water, in the shower, etc. All things that would have destroyed a real opal many years ago. 3. A friend brought a pair of earrings that matched my necklace, not on purpose, and she confirmed that my necklace and her earrings made up the store's imitation opal birthstone set. I love that freaking stone. I don't wear much jewelry, but I haven't taken that necklace off in 3 years. I have literally told him that if we get married one day, I'm having the thing pulled off the necklace and set into a ring. That's gonna be an awkward conversation with the jeweler. If I told him, he'd probably feel really bad about it and want to get me a replacement. But I love this stupid thing, so I won't tell. That's really nice of you to do. You know what? He may have lost some money with a fake, but he definitely won with you. Story 2. My wife is a huge animal lover. Volunteered at local shelters and such before our kids were born. One night, years ago, she was leaving work and outside the front door, she found a small bird. Probably a sparrow on the sidewalk. It didn't run or fly away, so she assumed it was hurt. She ran back inside, got a box, and searched online for a bird rescue and found one about 20 to 30 minutes away. She drove the bird there, dropped it off, and they took her information because they said they would send her a card as a thank you. This was at least 6 or 7 years ago, and she still brings it up every so often and remembers that they never sent that card. They did send the card thanking her for bringing the bird in for help. The card also said they euthanized the bird because it had broken bones in its wing, maybe from being hit by a car in the parking lot. I read it and crammed the card deep into the trash because I didn't want her to get upset that the bird she tried so hard to help had to be euthanized. Oh, that was unexpected. Why in the world would someone feel the need to include that detail in a card? Jesus Christ. Story 3. My wife has a beautiful heart. I jokingly call her a Disney princess because any animal she comes across she has to talk to and greet. She's cried by seeing a dead raccoon on the side of the road before. At the time, I was working a day shift and she was working a swing shift. I had a busy day, but I saw she sent me some pictures of a young doe that was eating in her front yard. She seemed thrilled. I came home and saw the same deer, dead, on my goddamn porch. I felt like I started to hear the First 48 theme playing as I realized I have 6 hours to get rid of this thing before my wife gets home and her world is shattered. Called my local city authorities thinking they wouldn't want a dead animal in the middle of town. Turns out they couldn't care less. They called some local raptor shelters to see if they could take a stat donation, but it turns out the dead deer business is booming, and they didn't have a need for donations at this time, especially in the next 6 hours. Frustrated, I called my dad to vent and get advice on what to do. His response is only a, "Hold on, bud. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I go back inside to take care of the dogs, and within the next 15 minutes, I see my dad back his huge truck into my backyard, has the tailgate down and is knocking on my door with a pair of nitrile gloves on and another pair in hand for me. It was starting to get dark out, but we had that thing loaded up and found a special place to dispose of it. We made it back 20 minutes to spare before my wife got home. I haven't told my wife, because I think it would either break her heart or creep her out at how efficiently my dad can dump a body. Anyway, wifey thinks her dear friend is alive and well, and totally not at the bottom of a ravine. That's epic. Your dad is the GOAT. Dead body, no questions. Just, I got you fam, gloves and a disposal site. Hilarious. Hey there. If you haven't heard already, a few friends and I recently launched Rufus Rugs, your go-to destination for premium custom hand-tufted rugs. Looking to add a touch of your favorite anime like Naruto to your space? We've got you covered. Or perhaps you're a die-hard Pokemon guy and want bus toys showcased for everyone to admire. No matter your style, we can bring your vision to life. Click the first link in the description to explore more. Story 4. I was stuck with my ex-partner for a long time because although I wasn't happy and wanted to leave, I couldn't. She told me that if I ever did, she would kill herself. I was committed to making her happy but never told her that I was depressed. She was severely autistic and required a certain amount of attention. She had a strict schedule where I'd have to stay in bed with her. No TV, no phone, just cuddling and talking until 10 p.m. every night. If I didn't, she would have a severe panic attack. Sometimes even if I did, she would have one because she thought I was leaving her, even though we lived together and I would only be a room away. This would happen extremely frequently, and I had to do everything for her, or she would have panic attacks. When I told her I needed a bit of space, she said she would give it to me, but she never did. Eventually, she found some messages of me breaking down to a friend about how I felt trapped and unhappy, and we broke up. She then threatened me by hurting herself. Thankfully, she was bluffing and faked self-harm. I found a vial of fake blood and gauze in her bag that she had left in mine. I checked it because we had an argument and wanted to make sure she hadn't left valuables. Suddenly, the panic attacks came into question too. Very conveniently, she had them whenever she didn't get her way. The moral of the story is, don't bottle anything up and don't keep secrets. Although their feelings are important, so are yours. Feelings and secrets will eat you up over time. Don't not tell them. If he or she is worth it, he or she will understand. In the worst case, you tell them and you lose them. But if they can't understand, they're not the person you think they are, and it's not worth it anyway. If they do understand, your relationship will be better for it. If I had been honest with my feelings, I would have saved myself 2 years of feeling suffocated and miserable. Sorry if I went off track, I just needed to offload a bit. Story 5. When my girlfriend was pregnant, she liked to take baths every night before bedtime. Every now and again, I'd join her and enjoy that relaxing hot water. One day, we were both sitting in the tub when she farted a big nasty fart. She and I both laughed and I gave her crap for possibly breaking the tub. There it was. I noticed a few brown things in the water. Turns out she had pooed a little. I was so absolutely disgusted that I nearly vomited. I didn't want to freak out because I know she would feel absolutely terrible and impossibly embarrassed. So I turned the jets on, added some bubbles, and sat there with her for another 10 to 15 minutes. Afterwards, I suggested that we both shower off because I had added too much soap for bubbles. I still think about those poop chunks floating around next to me whenever I take a bath. I'd like to think that on another thread somewhere, she's telling the story of when her boyfriend crapped in the bathtub while she was pregnant and then tried to cover it up by turning the jets on. That'd be hilarious. Story 6. My husband is terrible at surprises and wasn't very subtle in asking me my ring size, etc., while he was studying abroad in Europe. Shortly after he returned, I was helping him unpack his bags, and I think I told him I unpacked one of his bags, and his eyes went all wide and panicked. I didn't find the ring he had stashed in there, but he thought I had. I didn't think much of it until later. The next day, he was like, "Hey, we should go for a walk. I think I know a good route," which is unusual since he usually doesn't plan that far ahead. He wanted us to walk past the building where we had our first class together and where we met for our first date, plus a few other spots that meant something to us. Then, he wanted to walk to our nearby nature preserve where we spent a lot of time, where he ultimately proposed. I totally knew what he was going to do, but I kept my mouth shut and let him romance me because I loved it. It was so nervous and adorable too. We've been married about 4.5 years now, have a 2-year-old, and I'm glad I met this sweet nerd of mine. Story 7. How much her apartment cleaning service costs. My best friend growing up, practically my brother, owns a cleaning service, so I get the owner's rate. They clean my house for $60 a visit, which is insanely cheap here. When I first met my girlfriend, at some point in conversation, it came up that I use a cleaning service, and she joked, "Oh, Big Shot pays other people to clean his house." So I told her how, fortunately for me, it's not really a big expense. Fast forward a month or so, and she spent like a whole Friday night and Saturday cleaning. We both work a ton during the week, so I was like, "I'll pay for your cleaning service so we have more time to spend together on weekends." She wouldn't let me pay for it, but asked me to sign her up with my friend's service, and she just gives me the $60 or pays for some common expenses in that range. Thing is, I couldn't get the owner's rate for her, so it's really like $150 a visit. She loves having a cleaning service and appreciates having more free time, but she wouldn't pay $150 for it. I don't really care about the money, I just want her to be happy, so I don't tell her what it costs. Story 8. He is terrified of bees and wasps. They're all bees to him, completely terrified. Just the word bee will get him to start nervously looking around. If he was driving the car and a bee got in the window, I'd be afraid for my safety because there was a solid chance he'd accidentally crash. He's very embarrassed about this fear though. He knows it's irrational. He can't seem to help it. So I have developed a sixth sense about the presence of bees. If we're outside and I see one buzzing around, I'll make sure I either stand in his way so he can't see it, or I'll make an excuse for him to go inside. I've found wasps' nests in and around our house, and I take them out while he's at work and then never say a word about it. If a wasp comes around and he sees it, he'll run away. But then I'll hunt it down and kill it so when he comes back out, he can have the peace of mind of seeing its corpse from a distance. He doesn't know that I've been on 24/7 bee patrol for him for the past 3 years. I'm afraid he'd feel humiliated if he knew, and maybe even get depressed about it. But I don't mind. They're just wasps and honeybees. That's honestly the nicest thing you could do for him. But for me, bees are okay, thus save the bees. Wasps? Nope. I'll help you find them and leave their corpse everywhere to warn all wasps to leave or suffer the same fate. If you don't want to suffer the same fate as the wasps, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Story 9. 40% of my company was laid off systematically over a 2-year period. I built up my resume, networked, and made sure I had a place to land if crap hit the fan. I also worked my ass off at the job to make sure I was the one they kept if they did not go under. Ended up staying with the company, getting a raise and a promotion, and was pretty instrumental in turning the company around. She and the kids have no idea how close we were to losing my job and then subsequently our home. I still remember sobbing in the shower and giving myself a pep talk in the mirror many mornings and saying, "You can do it. Just pull all the fear out of your mind and be mentally tough." Story 10. My partner snores. Been with her 19 years and she snores every night. Mostly I can get to sleep and I sleep through it, but I know I'm not getting great sleep. I've asked her to see if we can do something about it, even suggested we do didgeridoo lessons together. The breathing technique does wonders for snoring, and why not learn a weird instrument? She's never really bothered. Her snoring can manifest as sleep apnea, which besides just not being good, is a contributor to anxiety, which she has, so it'd be good for her too. So we've recently moved. 2 nights ago, the neighbor's dog was barking in the middle of the night and kept her up for an hour or two. She kept mentioning it all day and kept telling me how tired she was. I gave some perfunctory sympathy, but no more, because secretly, it was all I could do not to say, "Welcome to every night in my life." It's not a big secret, but yeah. Dude, you gotta tell her. If you don't, you'll end up sleepless for the rest of your life. But if you can't tell her, you can always go with the earplugs and say you need them because of the barking. Story 11. That as much as I love her and her kids, our lives would be so much easier if she just let her ex have custody. She has a disability and they're both toddlers. I'm never going to have time to myself between work, tending to her needs, and tending to the kids' needs. Plus we like a home with pets. None of it is fair to me. And I know in love, both parties should try to give 60%, but I give 90%, and I just don't need that to be 100%. I didn't make the kids, never wanted kids. Honestly, still don't. I just fell in love with their mother, and if I want her, I have to want them too. They aren't bad kids, they're really sweet despite their father's side of the family. I just don't want the burden. She thinks her disability is the biggest burden I could possibly face. It isn't. It's the easiest part. I love her kids. I don't love having 100% of the responsibility. That doesn't change anything though. The point of the comment was not to say I don't want to be with my partner. It was only to say I wish it could be just us two. It isn't that way. Never will be that way. And I'm okay with that. I just wish I met her before him. Would be flying around the world instead of preparing for a looming custody battle. Story 12. My girlfriend and I have a good mutual friend, Sally, that we've known since the start of our relationship, who got to know us both at the same time and while we first started dating. My girlfriend adores Sally. And while we don't talk all that frequently, when we get together, it's like nothing's changed. We have a great time. Except, I'm holding a secret that would really hurt my girlfriend. Sally and I are both pretty political and love to debate current events, and my girlfriend is much more cursory about that stuff. Subsequently, Sally thinks my girlfriend is an idiot and not worthy of me intellectually, which I feel is absolutely ludicrous, obviously. I don't need to go into all the ways my girlfriend is brilliant and one of the deepest people I've ever met, but I guess Sally doesn't see that stuff or value it as much as what she deems to be real intelligence. After she and another one of her close friends, Adam, broke up, they had been dating for about 2 years, Adam revealed to me how Sally really feels in an attempt to demonize her. She would apparently go on and on about how my girlfriend isn't smart enough to keep up with our conversations, that I'm wasting my time. I've never spoken to Sally about this directly, and I'm not really interested in pursuing it with her. It's possible that Adam was exaggerating a bit. He's pretty upset that Sally and I are still friends, but honestly, I wouldn't put it past her to say stuff like that. And if my girlfriend knew how Sally really felt, she'd be devastated. It does change how I see Sally and definitely impacts my desire to maintain a friendship with her. But my girlfriend likes her so much that I just have to forget it and move on. And it's frustrating. This sounds like a familiar plot to some chick flick, but I'm pretty sure Sally likes you. Story 13. Several years ago, my husband, boyfriend at the time, worked for a small company owned by a very good friend of ours. I spoke with a friend quite a bit, and he confided in me that my husband was not a good employee. Pretty unreliable, and the only reason he hadn't been fired yet was because our friend knew he was having a rough time after his mom died. I had also recently moved out of state to take care of my sick dad. My husband refused to come with me because he felt he couldn't leave the company. I was having a conversation one day with my husband, and he mentioned another friend of his was having a hard time at this other company but felt he couldn't leave because he had a baby on the way. He said, "I'd offer him my job if I thought my boss would hire him." So I conspired with a friend or the boss to get the other friend to quit his job and pretend he got fired. My husband then decided the only honorable thing to do was fall on his sword and give up his job to give to the other friend. He talked with the boss and convinced the boss to let him make the move. And it played out like that, and my husband moved in with me. He ended up getting a job he liked better, and he was happier being with me, so his performance was better. We're still very good friends with the boss. To this day, we've kept the secret, and it's been almost 10 years. And every time I see him, he whispers in my ear how proud he is that my husband was able to move in with me and grow into a much healthier adult. But we'll never tell him, because he'd be so embarrassed if he knew that our friend thought of him as an employee. Story 14. Sometimes I really like her singing, but a lot of the time, she's just straining way out of her range. It can almost sound like she's wailing or shouting. Those aren't quite the right words, but I'm not going on the hunt for a thesaurus over this. And it's fine. I mean, I can't really sing, so even her bad singing is probably better than mine. But it can be really annoying. Sometimes she'll be playing guitar to accompany herself, and she'll get so into the song she's singing that she'll start slamming the strings. I don't know how else to describe it. She plays really well generally, but when she's excited, she hits the strings so hard they sound like they're going to break. That weird clunking music accompanied by the high, loud, cracking singing is truly cacophonous. I will never tell her. Not ever. She has so much fun doing it. I've decided it's just worth more than my temporary annoyance. I can bear to let the wind out of her sails by telling her when she sounds irritating. It'd be a different story if she was performing at open mics or something, but she only plays to entertain herself. Good for you to keep it to yourself. Also cacophonous. I think you meant caterwauling. Yes, I, Rufus, have an extensive vocabulary. I also love Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Story 15. That one of her biggest passions makes absolutely no sense to me. She's a jewelry artist, works for an actual jewelry company as a day job, then makes stuff for her own to sell online. Though lately she's been busy and hasn't done much of the second, though I am trying to help her a bit so she can do it more. And she just loves rocks. She'll come home with a bag full of rocks, practically jumping, telling me how she got all these for $50. And then go through the whole bag and show me every rock, telling me how this one is a so-and-so, and you can tell because it's this color and this hardness, and feel how smooth it is, and how you can see the imperfection here, and it all goes way over my head. And when I say rocks, I mean both actual rocks and gemstones. I've seen her get equally excited over a rock in a driveway as she is over some blue crystal she got from an auction. And every now and then I go online and research about these things so that I can talk with her about it, because holy crap, her smile when she talks about those rocks, she's so beautiful. But after I close the webpage going, yeah, I know all about the difference between a ruby and a sapphire now. I literally only freaking know those names because of Pokemon. I basically immediately start forgetting stuff, because they're rocks. It's just dirt that hardened and got pressurized at the right way at the right kind of heat or however they formed. But on the other hand, it's completely fine that I always forget stuff about the rocks because she loves telling me about them. And so far hasn't seemed bothered that she had to tell me twice, or more. Just excited that she could tell me the info. What's something boys can never tell their girlfriends? Story 1. We're concerned about you just up and leaving us. I've had it happen once, no warning or anything. The day before we were spooning in bed, talking like normal about everything. The next day she just moved out, left me and the dog. The dog she insisted we buy. I didn't really want that responsibility, without so much as a penny. I had spent a small fortune paying off her student loan and all of her bills a few days prior. I had an insane payout because of a large bonus thanks to my effort at work, and the deal was that we'd use her salary to buy food and live our lives that month. 6.5 years relationship. She just left me without so much as an explanation. Left me without money to buy food for me or the dog. It was so unexpected. Her friends called me and asked if I had cheated or what I had done wrong. None of them knew why she left either. It's been 10 years and I still don't know. And I still don't fully trust it won't happen again with my current girlfriend. The dog is still with me, by the way. A beautiful but old Rottweiler. 13 years old this September, which I spoiled rotten. Story 2. I actually watched this episode without you when you passed out last night. You have to make sure to restart the episode after I watch it, then let it play for a few seconds and then pause it there so they don't realize I've watched the entire thing without them. Story 3. How much I actually spend on my hobbies. It's not like I lie, I just never disclose my prices. To the grave. Hell, I don't even want to know. Story 4. That you wouldn't date her if she was a worm. Depends. If we started dating and then she became a worm, I'd get a little habitat thing to take care of her. I'd still love her. If I met her as a worm, then no. I couldn't start to develop any feelings. Story 5. The real answer to the question, what are you thinking about when he dozed off again? My then girlfriend used to ask all the time. She was super self-critical and was convinced I spent my time thinking about other girls. One day I got so fed up that I told her what I was actually thinking about. How great a rock band would be if it was made up entirely of apes. My now wife now just asks, monkeys playing drums again? Story 6. I want my hoodie back. My ex kept my favorite jacket. It's been 3 years and I still miss that jacket. Dude, that's cold. Obviously, because you got no jacket. Story 7. what I'm really thinking about, since you would never believe me if I said I was thinking about how bike tires are made. Story 8. 14 years ago, I woke up before you on a weekend. I was watching an episode of Batman the Animated Series. You woke up halfway through this episode and picked up the remote and changed the channel. You knew I was watching, and I never got to see the end of the episode. I'm still salty about it. Story 9. I need space from her sometimes. It's not because she did something wrong. I'm not currently in a relationship. This was me to my previous partners. I've grown since then and now know better. Frame it as time to yourself, not time away from her if you're able to. Story 10. The guy she tells us not to worry about really worries us. Story 11. The pigs are much bigger than you expect. Story 12. Calm down. So you have chosen death. Story 13. That when I think in bed, it isn't about her when I'm silent. I'm trying to solve a riddle from a game or question something on a TV show. Story 14. Where I buried my treasure. Story 15. Don't call her a ketchup packet when she's on her period. Story 16. That you're actually 3 toddlers in a trench coat. Whenever my girlfriend starts to catch on it, I just make up an excuse to go do a business. Story 17. In my case, what you thinking about? My wife asks me all the time, and I've been daydreaming about what it would be like if I owned that McDonald's across the street, and then after falling in a vat of radioactive fry grease was able to turn into Ronald at night. I would fight crime, but only if it was food-related, and all of my weapons would be burger condiment-themed. Then I'm thinking about the aerodynamics of pickles as shurikens, and what process I would use to make them sturdy and sharp enough to be lethal. It's a lot easier to just say spacing out than see her cute face raise an eyebrow in concern if I'm working too much again.
Hey, guess what? Our team just introduced Rufus rugs. Premium, custom, hand-tufted rugs. Imagine having your own unique rug that perfectly reflects your style. Whether you're a dedicated Naruto fan or simply adore Pokemon and can't resist displaying bus toys, we can turn your dreams into reality. We can create almost anything you want. Don't wait. Dive deeper into the world of Rufus rugs by clicking the first link in the description.
Story 18. That despite being sexually attracted to you, I still is fundamentally different from sexual interaction. Interaction is more about sentimental and emotional satisfaction and social interaction than it is about gratification, although this can go hand in hand. A lot of the stuff is more about fantasies you have but want to stay fantasies and have no real interest in doing. For example, lots of guys might be interested in some videos but not be actually interested in doing it in real life. There's also the fact that since guys can zone out and think of literally anything, that sometimes leads to wondering how it would feel like to jerk off to this or this and such. The fact that guys do it while still in a relationship doesn't mean he's not into you, and quite often can lead to higher drive and more need for emotional gratification with their partners. Story 19. About the voices. We aren't supposed to tell anyone about them. Story 20. How gorgeous they are. Never comes out right. It's never as much as you want it to be. I will never forget stumbling over my words to my first girlfriend. You're as pretty as you're ever gonna get. I get you. I freeze up whenever I try to compliment anyone in real life. Story 21. Yes, that girl we passed on the beach in that bathing suit was attractive, and the fact that I think she was attractive doesn't mean I'm unhappy with our relationship, neither that I want to cheat on you. Story 22. Who would win? Batman versus Polar Bear. She wouldn't believe me if I told her. Story 23. The dress doesn't make you look fat because you already are. The fact that you're fat makes you look fat. The dress just makes you look purple. Story 24. Don't call her Tony Pizza. Story 25. Which ones of her friends you think are hot? Don't care what she says, fellas. It's a trap. Or which one of her best friends you can't stand? Story 26. How many times per week they wanked in spite of having a girlfriend? Story 27. The only thing a good guy said to me that he shouldn't have is we went out to a nice Valentine's Day dinner at my favorite Indian restaurant. Got all dressed up, which is not our usual style as poorish retail workers. We're having a wonderful time, and he said, yeah, his ex and I came here for Valentine's Day once. Totally ruined the moment for me. I thought it was so special, but he'd been there and done that. I don't think he thought that one through. Story 28. About the jar, apparently. Story 29. That there were other women before you. Made this mistake thinking she met me when I was 34, so why should she care or be bothered by it? Fast forward 3 years and I ended up breaking off my engagement by text because her jealousy finally caused me to snap. Story 30. That long 40-minute nonstop story you just told me while I had full eye contact and kept nodding and agreeing with you? Yeah, I zoned out about 5 minutes in and was thinking about what show I'm going to watch later tonight. I just know how to look like I'm listening. Story 31. The extent to which I spend money on movies, games, books, comics, etc. But honestly, we have a mutually assured destruction type deal going where she also doesn't have to tell me how much all the plants and vintage clothes cost. I'd also note that we do save. We both have solid jobs and we're financially stable overall. Story 32. Yes, I do get aroused around you. It's not by choice. It's not because of anything in particular you're doing. I just think you're hot, and I intend to ignore it, because I don't want to just bring it up, and I don't really feel like dealing with it anyway. It's just kinda there. Story 33. My last girlfriend blamed her acne on the COVID vaccine. I didn't have the heart to say maybe it was the literal pint of ice cream she had almost daily. Story 34. That golf courses have this thing called pace of play, so 18 holes don't take 9 hours. Story 35. How much of a dork I am. Like, I don't think my girlfriend knows the fullest extent to how much I love the concept of Power Rangers and other Super Sentai mythos. Story 36. Based off of my most recent, you supposedly can't tell them how you deal with depression. That made her go crazy with yelling at me and then leaving and saying to never speak to her again. I am sorry her is still eating at you, but it was her issue, not yours. Her inability to interact with other humans at a normal level isn't something that you need to think twice about. The trash just took itself out. Be happy she showed you her true colors and you're free of someone so callous and also stupid. Like, why is she so mad? Does she think someone would choose depression? Hey guys, just a quick side note. If you like my content and love listening to the stories, please press the subscribe button and click on the notification bell to get notified of my future uploads. Thanks, and back to the stories. Story 37. About the throwaway Reddit account. Story 38. What you really were thinking of. How the hell do I explain? I wonder, if a circle could dance, would it squish or would it wiggle? Story 39. Who you would actually kiss, the prettiest girl or her? It's a trap no matter your answer. Story 40. That I'm thinking about nothing. Nothing, zip, nada, not a single thought. I just look at the clock and wonder why minutes, or in some cases hours, have passed where not a single constructive thought has entered my mind. It doesn't help that I have resting someone kicked your puppy face. My current girlfriend gets it now, but man, it took years to convince her that I'm not overthinking. I'm dissociating. Story 41. How much their Games Workshop models really cost. Story 42. That we smell our hands after we scratch our I legit get negative emotional feedback from my brain if I can't catch a whiff afterwards. Glad to know I'm not wired entirely wrong. Story 43. I'm war-torn, so when the nightmares come on too strong, I just say I'm dreaming that the dog got out again. I used to not tell my wife about the nightmares. One day I opened up and shared some of what it was, some of what we did, not the worst of it, and the more I shared with her, the more it helped keep the nightmares back, and it took a huge wedge out of our relationship. She was able to understand now why sometimes I just needed alone time, or would rather spend 4th of July with a case of beer and a movie and not down at the festival and fireworks show. Story 44. That I enjoy not talking to her when we're cuddling. Don't get me wrong, I also love having a good conversation with her, but I'm perfectly content with just being silent. That always seems confusing to women. Story 45. Jokes aside, if I'm in a good relationship with someone I love and trust, basically nothing. I mean, aside from things that aren't mine to share, such as things other people have told me in confidence or things I'm bound to by a legal contract with an employer not to talk about. Story 46. No, I wouldn't love if you were a literal spider. Look, a worm is hard, but some spiders are really cute, not gonna lie. Story 47. That I worry constantly that you'll realize I'm not as good as any other dude. Story 48. Yes, you put on a little weight, but I like it. I actually told my girlfriend of 12 years this. We both know she's put on a little weight. She was a size 8 when I met her, so not exactly difficult. And I need her to know that she looks hot, and any weight she put on was put on in all the right places. Story 49. You should have ordered your own fries then. Reminds me of that one restaurant where there's a menu item, my girlfriend is not hungry, and then they bring you an extra order of fries. Story 50. Babe, you're being a little unreasonable here. Story 51. Okay, so it's less of a tell their girlfriends to more of a explain to their girlfriends. Once we're finished with a bottle of soda, why do we bonk our heads repeatedly without even thinking about anything? And the excruciating pain that you got once you accidentally hit your head with a cap instead. Story 52. The trauma I've gone through. So many women give zero crap about what you've been through or what you need help with. In my personal experience, the literal moment you express what you need support with or even express your trauma, they disappear. I'll never not be for equality, but it hurts so damn much when a woman who has past trauma turns her back on you. Story 53. When another woman is flirtatious with me, and no, before anyone says anything, I have absolutely not flirted back or given signals. In no way, shape, or form. For example, the most recent time was last week on vacation with my family. We were at a small beach in town in Eastern Europe. My wife got an ear infection from too much water going in her ears at the beach. I take my 1-year-old daughter to the pharmacy to get her something for it. I tell a young lady pharmacist that I need something for my wife's ear infection. Lady pharmacist proceeds to start asking me personal questions and flirting with me pretty blatantly while taking her time getting the medication. People are starting to walk in now. There's like a 3-person line behind me waiting. I'm being polite but short. Not curt, but almost. She's not bothered. And she brings her phone out trying to show me her Instagram page, while I'm holding my daughter in one arm and my wallet in the other. I tell her very firmly that she's been very helpful and I appreciate it, but I must get back to my wife. How much is the medication? She prints me a receipt, writes her Insta and Snapchat on it, and hands it to me. I give her the cash, pretend I don't see the info she wrote on the receipt, and joke, I don't need the receipt. I don't plan on returning the medication. Have a great day. I leave the receipt in the counter and leave. She's blowing my daughter kisses and waving to her as we leave while I'm wondering what the hell just happened. Bro, did she give you the right medicine and not something to get your wife out of the way? Story 54. You're not actually looking at them on the screen in a video chat when they ask what you're looking at. Story 55. That you got snacks from the store but didn't get me anything, even though I told you I didn't want anything. We all do it. But why? I expect the opposite of what you're asking, and then get huffy when it happens. Story 56. What the boys are saying in the group chat. Bro, if anyone found my Discord group chats, I would go to a mental asylum. Story 57. Their insecurities. Story 58. I don't hate my exes. I don't think they're monsters. There was a reason I dated them. And if anything bad happened to them, we would genuinely feel concerned. Also, keeping a good relationship with their parents or even checking in on them even after we broke up. You don't have to burn bridges in every relationship you walk out of. Story 59. That I just got, it's not because of that other woman who just walked or drove or cartwheeled past. It's because we just walked past a cafe and I got a whiff of a particular blend of tea that reminded me of this time I was in a supermarket looking for tea and my friend texted me about something that reminded me of the time we were backpacking across Western Europe and we stopped for tea in a cafe just outside Barcelona. And the older but still attractive waitress gave me one of the 3 compliments I've ever received, which I had a good wank over when we got back to the hotel. I can relate to this one on a personal level. Story 60. Exes. Nobody wants to know about them, especially your current girlfriend. If someone asks about them, tell them to go to plug a hole. It will never end well for you. Story 61. My ex was thinner, prettier, better at insert random line than you. You should have stayed with her in that case, champ. Story 62. How stressful it can be moving into renovating a new house. She's stressed out too, so me sharing my stresses as well, it doesn't help anything. Just taking it one thing, one moment, one day at a time, and gonna focus on that instead. It sucks always having to be the rock and feeling like you can't express when you're stressed. Story 63. That sometimes we're barely coping with reality and now and again we could use a little support too. Well, you could tell your girl that. I did. Didn't go too well. Story 64. It's less of a she can never know and more of a physical impossibility. Sometimes it's just impossible for a man to tell his girl just how much he loves her. He can't find the words. He can't find the right actions. Nothing can ever truly convey how much he means to him. And then she walks away. And suddenly he knows exactly the right words, but it's too late. Story 65. Literally anything emotional. I'm sick of the, man need to open up more and show emotion meme. Because every single experience of that I've ever had in life demonstrates the opposite. My ex broke up with me a month ago. Why? It moved house, changed careers, and did it all for us. It made moves to give us a better life. She promised to support me during a difficult transition. Quickly, it spiraled into complaints that I wasn't doing enough to show I cared, and every time I'd show vulnerability, cry, ask for emotional support, I'd meet, I don't have time for this. Man up, I'm not here to be your mummy, or something degrading, belittling crap like that. We were together for 2 years, and I supported her through so much. Story 66. Sexual attraction is not equal affection. You'd be arguing with a brick wall trying to explain your way out of that one. See that couch? Given a long enough time alone and a teenager's hormones, they would likely do that couch. I cannot imagine anyone ever dating that couch. That is the difference between sexual attraction and romantic attraction. Story 67. Most dudes do not wipe after pissing. Story 68. That we don't like it when they talk like babies. Story 69. If our exes were better and bad. Absolutely no good can come out of honesty here. We bottle that up and let it eat ulcers through our guts and be grateful for a mediocre head, whatever it takes to avoid that war. She could be better than your ex if you communicate exactly what you like. Story 70. I sometimes appreciate being alone or not with you. There are moments that are better without you, like watching a football game with my friends, sitting alone on the porch, letting the thoughts fly away. Sometimes I want to do what I like, without tending to your needs and wants. Even if you say it's okay to ignore you, I will still low-key care and make sure you're having a good time. Putting focus away on the activity and removing parts of the fun in the process, I care about you. That is the problem. Story 71. The guys like being protected just as much as girls, and that sometimes we want to be the princess protected by a strong knight of a girl in our life. Also, some of us fantasize about being fed grapes under a tree while our hair is gently stroked as we fall asleep with our head on your lap, with our thighs as a nice safe pillow with a small breeze blowing as we sleep deeply and peacefully feeling protected. Story 72. Their first loves that they can never forget. I don't like generalizing things, but that's true for most men. Story 73. We pee a little in our underwear sometimes when we don't shake. Never had that problem since elementary school, when I started sitting down to pee and using toilet paper to dry it. Story 74. When she sweats, it smells like salt and vinegar chips, and the scent honestly turns me on. Story 75. How sometimes we feel emotionally weak and need help. No one must ever know. Story 76. It depends on the person. One girl I was with never wanted to hear that anybody else was especially attractive, but another girl had no problem with that and got upset about me watching explicit content. That one didn't last long for other reasons too. Whatever you don't want to tell them, they should be okay with. And if you do want to tell them, they should be okay with that too for the most part and for the important stuff. What are some things that a guy should never ever tell his wife? Story 1. I didn't get to try my mother's lasagna till I was 20 years old. Why? My father, in a temporary bout of insanity, whilst eating my mother's homemade food, said to her, "This is really good lasagna. You know who makes really good lasagna? My ex-wife." Story 2. I once heard my stepdad say, while my mom was standing right beside him, that his ex-wife was a 10 in looks but a 4 in personality, but that my mom was a 4 in looks but a 10 in personality. He thought it was a compliment, and he still hasn't lived it down, but his story has changed over time. My mom is now a 7 in looks. Story 3. Reminds me of an old joke. A cheating husband decided to write a letter to his wife. "My dear wife, you'll surely understand that I have certain needs that you, as a 54-year-old, can no longer satisfy. I'm very happy with you and I value you as a good wife. However, after reading this letter, I hope you will not wrongly interpret the fact that I will be spending that evening with my 18-year-old secretary at the Comfort Inn. Please don't be upset. I shall be back before midnight." When the man came home late that night, he found a reply to his letter on the dining room table. "My dear husband, I received your letter and thank you for your honesty about my being 54 years old. I would like to take this opportunity to remind you that you are also 54 years old. I would like to inform you that, while you read this, I'll be at the Hotel Fiesta with Michael, one of my students, who is also an assistant tennis coach. He is young, virile, and like your secretary, he is 18. See you in a week's time." That's a lot of damage. Story 4. I have a buddy who went on a ski trip with his fiancée and her family. His fiancée wasn't too confident in the snowmobiles and just kind of poking along. Well, the future mother-in-law was tearing it up. This guy actually said, "I wish you were more like your mom," to his future wife. She ended up still marrying him. Story 5. My mom was under the impression that my dad's favorite meal was lasagna for 15 years. One year on his birthday, he broke it to her that she misheard him and his favorite food was spaghetti the whole time. Needless to say, they got divorced a year later. It is amazing what lasagna can do to a marriage. That sucks, because lasagna is so much more effort than spaghetti. Story 6. I got pregnant last year, and one thing we used to do all the time before I was pregnant was take baths together. We live in an old apartment building with the original porcelain tubs, so they're huge. We're also a bit more cautious about waste. Well, I was about 33 weeks pregnant, and we took a bath, and he said, "You know, this is really great. We don't need more water because you displace so much." He thought it was a great compliment, until I looked back at him angrily. Story 7. When I was near my due date, I rolled over in bed, which you know is a huge amount of effort and energy. When I finally managed to roll over, my husband cheered and then went, "There she rolls." If I'd rolled to face him, I would have punched him. Sadly, I rolled, so my back was to him and didn't have the energy to do it again. Story 8. Reminds me of my ex. Standing in the middle of a department store, he said to me, "The first time I'm married for love. Next time I'm marrying her," as he pointed at a young attractive girl in the store. I see why he's your ex. Story 9. That she behaves like her mother. Sometimes my girlfriend will be acting exactly like her mother in ways I know she hates when her mother does it, and I'll just reply with, "Okay, Linda." This typically sets her off, but most of the time, she'll come back on it later saying she needed to hear that and she apologizes. There have been times she disagreed with my assessment though, in which cases it was a bad call to make. Story 10. I was in the car with my wife, sister-in-law, and father-in-law. The girls were complaining about their mother, so I asked their father how much the girls were like their mother. He replied 30% for my wife. Sister-in-law was happy and very confident she was nothing like her until her father told her she's 60%. After that, it was a silent trip. Story 11. Your exes, even if she asks, never ever try to compare them. Story 12. Few months into the relationship, my ex once told me I'm bad at being on top and his ex was amazing at it. I was so upset and ashamed I ended the video call abruptly. He then apologized by saying, "But you're much better at other things than she was," as if that would erase the hurt. I never did it again after that, even after he apologized numerous times. That single comment alone obliterated my confidence and comfort, because I couldn't shake the thought of him thinking of his ex whenever we did it. It didn't help that he kept saying my thighs were too big and I should eat less and burn more fat in my legs. That's why he's an ex now. Story 13. You were more fun before we got married. I'ma just lay some truths for anyone not yet married. Men expect that women will not change after they're married. They will. Women expect that men will change after they're married. They will not. Story 14. My wife was complaining that there was no food and said she was starving. There was, she's just picky. It got on my nerves a bit and I said, Well, you don't look like you're starving. Don't ever say that. Story 15. Whenever I say out loud to myself, what should I or do I want to eat? And my husband happens to be nearby, he responds with, less. Story 16.
Dad was drunk one night when I was 16 and said to Mom that she was a fat cow and wished she didn't get that surgery as it made her who she is today.
She had breast cancer and had to have surgery to get rid of it. She had a tissue expansion which made her D's become E's for a period of time, and Dad hated it.
Hey, guess what? Our team just introduced Rufus rugs. Premium, custom, hand-tufted rugs. Imagine having your own unique rug that perfectly reflects your style. Whether you're a dedicated Naruto fan or simply adore Pokemon and can't resist displaying bus toys, we can turn your dreams into reality. We can create almost anything you want. Don't wait. Dive deeper into the world of Rufus rugs by clicking the first link in the description.
Story 17. My dad drunkenly told my mom that she made him feel stupid and he wished they hadn't gotten married. She let it go the first time. The second time he said it, she began talking to her lawyer friend about divorce. Of course, my father was shocked that his homemaker wife would actually try to divorce him. He fought it pretty hard and refused to move out of the house for the first few months of their separation. Story 18. That's something as easy when she's clearly struggling to do it. This particularly applies to physical things, even if they don't necessarily require strength. Story 19. My husband once said, I married my mother. I'm still plotting his demise. I'm nothing like his mom. Total opposite. That's why she hates me. My husband and I have gone to couples therapy, and he realized that he's an exact replica of all her terrible behaviors, and he was projecting it onto me. He didn't realize that he behaved in the same hurtful ways and thought that everyone else was the problem. Thank goodness for therapists working us through that sweet, sweet childhood trauma. Story 20. This hot new girl just started at the office. My boyfriend's business partner learned that the hard way. Story 21. The real cost of the guitar I just bought. Did you just buy another guitar? You already own 7 of them. Yeah, I'm selling some of them as well. Oh, then it's okay. Until this day, I've never sold one of them. Luckily, my wife doesn't care as long as I don't just go crazy with it, which is good because it keeps me from making impulse buys, which I surely would do if she wasn't there to temper me. Her only caveat is she gets to name them. Story 22. My dad, who doesn't bake anything and barely cooks at all, while eating a slice of my mom's homemade apple pie, says, "You don't cut the apples right." That was the last apple pie she ever made for him, around 40 years ago. Story 23. My wife asked me which of her friends I'd like to do it with. I gave her 2 names. I'm dumb. Story 24. That she needs to relax. Just the other day, my wife was on the phone with my daughter, and something was wrong with some insurance claim daughter had from an accident. My wife gets riled up and is talking so loud, I interrupted and told her to relax. It was a simple explanation as to how the issue came up, and I knew this. She was mad at me for hours, even though she realized I was correct shortly after, so mad that she wouldn't even make me a sandwich. Story 25. You must be getting your period soon. I do this all the time. I follow it up with, that look confirms it. Then I make sure I do things at time of asking. Story 26. My mom was right about you. I've been told that once, when I was working my way to breaking up with him. I didn't mind that his mother was right about me. Story 27. Ha, I told you so. Applies to both spouses. Story 28. Wow, your sister maintained her figure really well after their kid was born. I had not seen her friend for about a year, and it was about 3 months after she had a child. She looked healthier than I had ever seen her, so I commented along the lines of, "Holy crap, Brittany has stayed in great shape throughout this whole process. Good for her. She's looking better than ever." The comment was made with supporting her friend in mind. I'd never even considered that it could be taken differently. Story 29. My wife is a terrible whistler, but only whistles when she's extremely happy. I will never tell her how bad she is. Story 30. Told my girlfriend she was worthless. I meant priceless. Now she laughs every time I utter either word. Story 31. In a drunken argument, I said something inappropriate. She replied, "Well, that's below the belt." I immediately came back with, "So are your tatas." I would not recommend this rebuttal. How did you access this sub from beyond the grave? Story 32. When I was pregnant with my daughter, maybe 10, 11 weeks and really wacky hormonal, my ex suddenly looked up and said, "I know. If the baby is a girl, we should make it Stephanie, after my one true love. My name is 100% not Stephanie." Story 33. When I asked how I looked to my partner after getting all dressed up, he glanced up and down, shrugged his shoulders, and remarked, "You look just like every other mother at the school gate." The unfortunate fact is that many mothers at the school gate where I live have sadly not taken care of themselves for whatever reasons. I'm not judging them. Most happen to be incredibly lovely ladies. Sometimes life happens. But this comment hurt me to no end when I made consistent effort and looked better than I did many years ago. It was unbelievably hurtful. Men, if you don't have anything good or at least constructively helpful to say to your wife, either smile and nod or keep quiet altogether. Story 34. An ex once told me he loved me almost as much as the ex that broke his heart. He continued to update me as I got closer to that mark, and finally, once I surpassed that mark. I was young and naive and he was my first boyfriend. I dumped him, I'm married now, and I think he's still sulking around wondering why nobody falls for him. Story 35. Details about life prior to meeting her. Likes and dislikes can be okay. How someone made you feel amazing is not. My boyfriend and I were going at it for the first time, but he didn't seem like he was in such a good mood, so I asked if he was fine. He then stopped, sat me on the couch, and started telling me about every thing he has ever done before meeting me, in great detail. I didn't say anything then, but more recently, I asked what was wrong with him for telling me that during our first time. He told me he thought I had asked something else. Just a quick side note, if you like my content and love listening to my stories, please press the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so you'll get notified of my future uploads. Story 36. Years ago, my girlfriend asked if there was anything I would change about her. She had a large nose and was a bit paranoid about it, but it didn't bother me. It wasn't ridiculously large. I figured I'd say something to make her less conscious of the nose, so my genius mind came up with bigger tatas. I should have just said nothing. Story 37. Call her the C word in an argument to shut her up. Unless you're an Australian. In that case, she probably called you the C word first. Story 38. That she's not interesting, or that you don't want her any longer. Do not insult a person like that. Just go away. My father-in-law was a big baby all his life. My mother-in-law worked full-time on her own business, kept herself fit, cooked and cleaned for him, and didn't mind his antiques, drinking, and angry fits. He was content up to a point when he found a young mistress and exited his marriage with a huge scandal, shouting undeserved insults at his wife. 10 years later, he's a lonely alcoholic and his ex-wife is happily married to a decent guy. All is good, but she's still bitter and often overwhelmed by insecurities. Story 39. Not my husband, but an ex-boyfriend. I dressed up for a dinner out, feeling super cute in my new dress, so I came up to him, smiley face and all. I didn't even ask how I looked. Did not intend to. He just said, with a disappointed face and a little disgusted tone, "You really want to know what I think about your outfit?" He's the ex for many reasons, but this one still makes me angry when I think of it. Story 40. We had a baby 2 weeks ago. The night after labor while sitting with our boy, I told her I'm tired. Should not have said that. I apologize. Story 41. At dinner with my parents last night, my husband said, "It was so annoying when you kept throwing up when you were pregnant. I threw up 3 times a day for 20 weeks. I am sorry it inconvenienced him so much." Story 42. You're not hot enough to have an attitude like that. I heard my friend's ex-boyfriend say that to her once. I thought her head was going to spin around like in The Exorcist. Story 43. My brother was with my sister-in-law when she was getting a C-section. He looked behind the curtain at her guts all open and came back around and just blurted out, "You look awful." The nurse was like, "You can't say that." I mean, it probably does look awful when someone is cut open. Story 44. Never tell your wife you ate anything in the car without her, especially if she's cooking dinner. Deny that and take it to the grave. Story 45. I was only 23 at the time, but I once told my now ex-wife that her cooking will never be as good as my mom's. No offense, though. And boy, that was the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life. Like, what was I even thinking? Story 46. Don't ever bring up how attractive she was before kids. This guy I worked with would say that all the time. I always told him not to say stuff like that if he still wants to wake up the next morning. Story 47. During my pregnancy, I was battling to turn over in bed and hubby said, "Like a ship trying to turn in the harbor." I wanted to smack him, but it was also pretty funny. Story 48. My ex-wife, after we broke up, said that she married for in her first marriage, for love in her second, and her third will be for money. I was the second. She said this to me with no one else around, and it took a while for us to be back on good terms, for the kids. Story 49. My brother and his fiancée were talking about having children while I was in the backseat on our way to wherever. She said she wanted one of each gender. He said he didn't care about their gender, he just didn't want kids with brown eyes. Because it's the color of poop. My whole family has very blue eyes. Her response while driving was, "Honey, what color are my eyes?" "They're brown, always have been. We will forever remind him of this moment, for so long as we all shall live." Story 50. In my early 20s, I was in my first serious relationship and had expressed some insecurity to my partner at times about not feeling pretty, including that I was worried his guy friends would talk smack because I wasn't conventionally attractive. I recognized that those were my insecurities, and I owned them, and never accused him of causing them. Although his comments about other people's weight did influence my own body image, but felt it was important for my partner to know I was experiencing them, so I was open about it. One day he was high as hell, smiled at me lovingly, and said, You know, when we first got together, I was a little sad that I couldn't show you off to my friends, but I don't care about that anymore. And said something along the lines of, even if I'm not what other people would consider pretty, he still thought I was beautiful in a unique way, that he loved me as a person and not for my looks. Then asked why I looked so sad. He genuinely thought he was saying something sweet and romantic to me. Story 51. A few years ago, my girlfriend cut her hair, and I told her the new haircut made her kind of look like her mother. We are getting married in 2 months. She probably didn't hear me. Story 52. When dating my now wife, she asked if she was a good kisser, and I made the mistake of saying something like, top 3. We've been together 20 years, and every so often, she still asks if she's become a better kisser. Story 53. My ex-boyfriend would constantly tell me how I'm not the type he usually goes for, and he doesn't even know he went for me. It really made me feel like crap. Story 54. I have definitely confused who I did or watched with. Once or twice, I tell my wife, yeah, we did. Remember, it was... When she insists we didn't, I start doing the mental math, get an oh crap look on my face. Never mind, that was with another person. We should do that. I think you'd love it. That said, I don't tend to get in trouble for it. That ex was a major relationship for me. They've met and joked before, so it's all good. Still don't recommend it without proper training and stunt team watching. Story 55. I was nervous to meet my boyfriend's mom for the first time, and he said, don't worry, she loved my ex. What he meant was, she's not the type of mom who thinks no one is good enough for her son, and she loves everyone. But what I got was, she loved the girl I dated for 4 years. Good luck. And I'll never forget it. Story 56. What happened to your big bum? I once had a boyfriend who, after 1 year of a relationship, started making comments like this one. I remember he would grab my behind and comment how I needed to do a lot more squats, or else, if it happened today instead, he doesn't have enough earth to run. The audacity. Story 57. I had a friend call his fiancée homely. He thought he was saying that she was nurturing and a great partner to build a family with. Fortunately, he had some wiggle room with English not being his first language. Story 58. I was around 19 and cuddling with my then boyfriend, who turned to me and said in a loving tone, I love you, fat. I was like a month out from inpatient treatment for anorexia. I can't remember what his explanation for saying it was, but he was absolutely mortified and apologized about it profusely. Another time he looked at me deep in the eyes and said, I love you, Zoe. Zoe was his ex. We remain friends, and I still like to occasionally give him crap about both of these. He is completely and intentionally tactless, and it's hilarious. Story 59. When our second daughter was 3 or 4 weeks old, my husband went away for 2 nights for work. Hotel room to himself, full night's sleep, out for dinner both nights. He then came home and told me how tired he was. It did not go down well. Story 60. Your sister is gorgeous. My husband told me that, but my sister and I are identical twins, so I don't mind. Story 61. Your mom is hot. Luckily, he saved it by explaining he meant I'd be hot when I'm old too. Story 62. My mom is diabetic, and when her sugar levels dip, she becomes irritable. She got upset at my dad for not soaking the pans, and he responded by asking if she's upset because of her sugar levels. He was sincerely concerned. Never mind the fact that my mom asks him to soak the pans every other day, and he forgets every time without fail. My mom was pissed. Story 63. Using the phrase whatever. It is dismissive. I programmed a keyboard replacement that changes that to, I trust your judgment. Story 64. Trust me, woman. I know what I'm talking about. I'm 100% positive on this. Well, 5 minutes later, after a Google search showed me, with a mischievous smile, I was in fact wrong. Story 65. My running joke is that I tell my wife she's the best I've ever had. Then I act like I remembered someone and then tell her she's in the top 3. No, wait, top 5. Oh hell, I forgot about those 2. Definitely in the top 10. Damn it. So-and-so did that one thing I really liked, so easily in the top 20, and then I just keep on and on until the joke runs its course. Story 66. My husband was starting to have problems with his... We didn't know at the time this was the beginning stages of ED caused by his diabetes, so we were trying everything to get him hard and maintain his... I was trying everything. Out of frustration, he says, oh, never mind, you just don't do it right. Even though he apologized, I never fully got over it. I would hear those words echo in my head. It destroyed what little confidence I had. I still carry it to this day. What things should be kept private from your significant other, no matter how healthy your relationship is? No matter how healthy a relationship is, there'll always come a time where you have resentful thoughts of your spouse. Those should be kept to yourself, as most of them pass quickly. The only time you should share them is if they're persisting in some behavior that is hurting you, and it should be done calmly and not in the heat of the moment. For instance, if you got home from work tired to find your spouse binge-watching a TV show, but the sink is full of dirty dishes, the impulse may be to laze into them. Don't. Go ahead and do the dishes, and tomorrow, when that initial flash of anger is past, Discuss the issue. People say arguments can be healthy in a relationship, but it all comes down to how you argue. Spouses, at least if they're good ones, know intimate details about you, your past, and how you think and feel. This gives them weapons to hurt you, and it may be tempting to use such weapons when angry. But if you know your spouse has a sore spot about their dad and you say in anger, "This is why your dad never loved you," you have permanently damaged your relationship, and that damage builds up over time. Successful relationships survive because people rein themselves in at that moment. Even when they're angry, they don't want to inflict wounds like that. So whenever the impulse arises to use those weapons in anger, resist the temptation. You may forget what you did quickly, but they won't. So basically, don't be a schmuck even when you're feeling like one. A timeless piece of advice. Story 2. This is a really subjective answer, and I'm sure Reddit will disagree, but for me, bathroom time. I have 3 kids, and one of them is my full-time responsibility as her mom isn't around. I live and breathe for my kids, and I love them. But doing my morning and evening bathroom events, I really love the solitude. The last few women I dated were great, but they would just kind of barge in no matter what I was doing. To me, showering at the end of the day, brushing my teeth, using the toilet are all kind of zen for me. I just don't like sharing a shower or being interrupted while doing so. That's just me. I'm single, so maybe there's a reason for that. For those saying, just lock the door, I want to say my daughter is almost 5. When I shower, I can't just leave her alone. That's how horrible accidents happen. Yeah, she can pour herself water and use the potty alone, but I can't shut her out. If she has a problem, I need her to be able to come in. I live alone and her brothers are only around ever so often due to custody orders. Locking my bathroom door just isn't a good idea with a toddler running around. She sits on my bed and usually watches TV while I shower. I don't know if the women I've dated just saw this as an open opportunity, but locking the door to my kiddo just isn't a good idea. Story 3. So my short answer is nothing. The longer answer is that they should be prepared for the answer and be adult enough to be able to handle it. When my now wife and I were still dating, but we both knew it was serious, I let her know that anything she wanted to know, I would tell her. I also said that she needed to be absolutely 100% sure that she really wanted to know that answer because I wouldn't lie to her. We've been together over 2 decades and there were a couple times when she asked something, usually when drinks were involved, where I thought it a bad idea to answer but just said, "Are you sure you want the answer?" Each of those times, maybe 3 of them, she reconsidered and said no. Now there are times I steer answers away from the asked question, but that's not for privacy, just to make sure feelings aren't hurt. We've been together for a very long time and there's been weight gain for both of us, and a typical trope where she looks at me and says, "I'm fat" or "I'm old." I look at her and say, "You're beautiful." I'm not lying. She is beautiful in my eyes. I'm just steering away from that conversation which would hurt her feelings. The answer of "I love you," "You're beautiful," "I love your body," or "We're old and have a great lifetime together" are all truths and they go far and should be said to your partner. Story 4. A couple of years ago, we found a pigeon in our garden that had broken its wing. My wife loves all animals, so instantly named it Eric. We took it to a local vet's and they said they would take care of it. I emailed them a couple of weeks later as my wife wanted to check in on it. I got an email back saying it had to be put down because its wing had broken. This would have upset my wife, so I doctored the email reply and made it out like it had been released. For 2 years after that, my wife was convinced that the pigeon that came to our garden was Eric. We have moved since, and she thinks another one is Eric. I'll never let her know the reality of poor Eric the OG. Story 5. Sometimes, no matter how attractive your partner is to you and no matter how much you love them, there is an aspect of them that is unchangeable but that you find gross or annoying or just generally less than attractive. Clogged nose pores, a laugh that sounds like a Muppet, big toenails that just look a little bit weird, or that single long hair growing from inside their ear that just keeps coming back no matter what they do. If it's going to make them feel insecure or unloved, this is something you should just keep to yourself. In a relationship, you learn each other's weak points and vulnerabilities, and using them against your partner is a boundary that, once you cross it, you can't come back from. Once you make someone feel like they can't trust you with their vulnerable self, your relationship is on its way out. Big toenails? Seriously? That's like complaining about the weather. It's just there, a constant reminder of our mortality. Embrace the toenail, friend. Story 6. Your psychologist or therapy sessions. I had an ex that used to demand I tell him what I talked about in my sessions, and it was super uncomfortable. With my current partner, we're both in therapy, and if it's a phone session, the other goes in a different room. If we want to talk about something we told the psych or something we will tell our psych at the next appointment, we do. But I would never ask, and nor would he. We might ask, How did it go? To which the other may say it was good or it was emotionally draining. But that's as far as it should go. These are personal sessions, not couples therapy. We're not in that. Story 7. It's not that it should be kept private, as in forcefully, but I believe both persons in a relationship should have privacy in their devices. My significant other has all my logins and passcodes for my phone and tablet, but this doesn't give her the right to go snooping for stuff that will never be there. She can totally grab my phone, if it's nearest, to search on Google or grab someone's phone number, but we've agreed that if either of us snoop, you better be sure that there's going to be something to find, because if there isn't, then you deserve the trouble that you've caused. Story 8. My wife is a doctor. I know that she's treated people that we know, but obviously she doesn't say who or for what. One exception was our neighbor, but the circumstances made it kind of okay. He and his wife invited us round for a drink and we were chatting away. "What do you do?" he asked, and she replied that she was an anesthetist at the hospital. "I had an operation recently," he tells us. And then he went on to explain in detail how he had this hip or knee or something done and casually mentioned that the anesthetist, a young woman he described as about my wife's age, had done a good job. After we left, my wife revealed the obvious, that it was indeed her, something to which he was genuinely oblivious. Story 9. My wife once accidentally hit back on my phone's browser, and it was just weird stuff like, "Can dogs eat pickles?" in a Google search. I got back again, and it was like, "What are strawberries if not berries?" And we just had a fun time going through it. I've got nothing to hide, and she thought my searches were funny. I didn't realize just how deep that one tab went. She learned about Triton, the only large moon in our solar system, in retrograde, and other strange facts. Story 10. If you're a guy, which I am, apparently you should keep texts to yourself. I have a subordinate at work, girl, who is nonstop trying to text with me. I told my wife about it because while I don't engage with this chick, I'm genuinely worried that if I anger her off, she'll make up some lie about me and go to my boss. It's a really helpless position to be in, and since my wife likes to go through my phone, I told her about it ahead of time. Turns out in her mind, I must have done something to give the impression. Basically the male version of, "Shouldn't dress like that." Wow, double standards goes crazy. Story 11. You shouldn't tell your partner that you plan to abandon them while you were having an exacerbation of your depression. My husband told me once that when he was very depressed, he planned to leave in the night and drive to another random state and never tell me anything. He honestly felt that would be better for me, apparently. He says I shouldn't feel any type of way about it because he was sick. I say, how can I depend on you as a partner knowing this? This is something you tell a therapist. Now I have a partner who might just get sad one day and decide he should punish himself by disappearing, and I'd be completely doomed. Story 12. Okay, here we go. So I'm a grown man nearing 30 and I still love Power Rangers. I don't know what is wrong with me, but it's like I never grew out of it. When I started my new HR job in February, the pay was exceptionally well. They ended up paying me more than any job I had ever had in my life. So I lied and said I was making the same as my old job and spent some money in a Power Ranger cosplay costume, Gold Ranger from Zeo. I've been working out and getting fit, and my wife thinks it's because my doctor told me I'm at the age where I need to start watching that. He did tell me that, but that's besides the point. In reality, my friends and I are going to a few conventions this year. I did eventually say, "Oh, look, baby, they gave me a retention raise. They're paying me more than my old place." She doesn't know. My wife is super supportive, and I love her dearly, but I know this costume is easily the nerdiest and cringiest thing I've ever bought, and I don't have the heart to tell her. Story 13. That I know my wife gets her jokes from an app. Every night she tells me a mildly funny joke before she takes a shower for the night. I'll always ask her where she gets these jokes before she goes into the bathroom, and she just laughs at me and closes the door. One day her phone was on and I decided to go through it and found out she gets the jokes from an app. I don't have the heart to tell her I know because she seems so proud of herself to come up with jokes, and likes to think I think she's funny and comes up with jokes. Story 14. Other people's secrets. I absolutely can't stand, well, if you tell me, you tell both of us. Get stuffed. I won't tell you crap then. And the same people who say that ridiculous stuff then complain that none of my friends talk to me now that I'm married. Maybe it's because you're a crappy friend that blabs secrets and can't keep your mouth shut. I'm still keeping the secrets of people I no longer speak to. I don't mind to share. I'll take them to my grave. I don't tell my husband anything unless it directly concerns us or our kids. Story 15. My muttered ramblings. It's a means of working out my feelings, often having an argument by being both sides of it. I can be pretty toxic when I'm heated, so I use this as a way to internalize that potential toxicity and work out a better way to express my feelings on various topics that are important in the relationship. Often, this leads to me deciding against saying anything at all because I feel like if all I can do is spout toxicity, then I likely don't have any good points worth discussing and I'm just mad for no articulable reason. Story 16. My current boyfriend is my soulmate. I know with him I found the one, per se. He has been nothing but good to me, healing me and doing his best to help me at my lowest. He even took a little mini class with my best friend so he could learn and understand what to do when I have my anxiety or PTSD trigger blackouts. Overall, a great man. But since getting into an actual healthy relationship, I've opened up, which in turn has opened up a closet of anxiety and demons I've been pushing down. A lot of times I need to bite my tongue and stop myself from exploding due to me having a reaction to his touch, which can be as simple as just him grabbing my hand to hold or kiss it, or just tapping my shoulder to get my attention. I have ADHD, because I don't want him to think it's him I'm reacting to, that he's hurting me. I just still haven't adjusted to not being mistreated by a partner. I do tell him that it happens, just never in the moment. Story 17. I personally don't have a certain topic, but I have a past where I was a very heavy user. And you do and say things they aren't proud of or even mean. And I found it liberating to be honest about it, because I thought that she fell in love with me and not who I was or did. She's very anti-substance and hasn't done any, apart from drinks and cigarettes. Not exactly hardcore, I know. But I told her everything I've ever done thinking that she won't even care because she knows that I've changed. Now she uses it against me and we're no longer together even after 9 years. Story 18. How much I dislike his parents. Both of them are equally awful. Lol. He comes from money. I say more money, more problems. His parents always try to drag my husband into something. But they are his parents, and he's very smart. Hopefully he'll put his foot down to them someday. It's not for me to discuss how I feel. It doesn't affect me, really. As much as I dislike them and they probably don't care for me so much either, I'm sure my husband loves them very much, or he wouldn't do what they want all the time. I feel like if something were to happen to them and I talk badly of them, he would resent me for a good reason. Story 19. My girlfriend, who knows damn well I'm on antidepressants and struggling, had the nerve to tell me the other day that I'm not as interesting as when we met, and that I'm just a byproduct of cringe late 2000s teenage angst. She has no idea I've been calling the unalive helpline because at this point I can't seem to find a bright spot anywhere. I already disliked myself, now I dislike myself even more. I stopped job searching. I can't quite handle rejection anymore, whether it be from her or a potential employer. I'm at my lowest and she's been nothing but one big spiky jagged edge refusing to offer any kind of comfort. Yet as soon as her dysphoria hits, I have to be the punching bag and pillow for her to lay into. Story 20. Yep. This was my ex getting super critical about my body and then justifying it by basically claiming that all men are like that and many men wouldn't even want me at all. I can't promise you people wouldn't laugh at you. I've seen what videos look like and it doesn't look like you. He just said something really mean and doubled down, I guess, so he didn't have to feel bad. It really messed me up, especially because there are so many pieces of media out there letting you know that nice guys are the best thing you can have as a woman. Before that relationship, I didn't even think they were that bad, just different. He made me feel pretty repulsive. I'm still pretty mad about it because he was objectively a guy most people would consider scrawny and ugly. 5'3", 120 pounds, but I never complained because I liked him for him. I'm getting mean here because I wish I could tell him this now, so he had to feel that pain. But the truth is, the things I didn't love about his body, I learned to appreciate as part of him. He told me in order to be totally honest in our relationship after being caught with his friend sending him pictures. He knew I felt insecure and he found the thing he thought was better about her to throw in my face. I think it was just to punish me for telling him about how he hurt me. I'm still really angry at him. It's been 6 months, but those words don't go away. Screw Josh and his nice guy BS. Nice guys don't crap on their partner's looks and then claim any man in his right mind would agree. Story 21. Things you aren't ready to talk about yet. I have a lot of trauma and am not always ready to talk or explain. Very early on in my relationship, we had been FaceTiming and the topic of trauma came up. He said, I've had something really traumatic happen to me and I've told only 2 people in my life. One being my ex-wife who essentially pestered it out of me and I never told her the whole story because I didn't feel safe. But I feel compelled to tell you about it. I want to tell you. Can I hang up and message it to you? And that's what he did. And I've never felt so privileged and trusted. I think that might have been when I started falling in love with him. In every aspect of a relationship, if they want to, they will. Story 22. Confidential work-related things that I'm legally not supposed to tell anyone outside of the project or case. I'm a psychologist, and there have been many times that my professional and personal life collided. Neighbors, his coworkers, friends' his family members, and the parents of my daughter's friends have been my patients, and I can't say a thing. I have to stand there feeling super awkward. I can't explain why. I know so much information about these people, and I have to pretend that I don't know how messed up their marriage is or all their family drama. Story 23. Well, one thing I wanted to keep private was something I was doing at work that if we broke up and she took it badly, could use it to get me fired. So I didn't tell her until I had left for a different job. She was a little upset that I didn't feel I could trust her, but I still feel I made the right choice, since my job would have been on the line. I was fudging my numbers by about 50%. They had insane production goals that not only I was not meeting, but the anxiety it caused made me physically sick, which led to calling in, which led to poor production, which meant higher production goals to catch up, which made me more anxious. It was awful. I tried anxiety meds, but it didn't help, so until I could transfer to a different department, I started lying about my production numbers. I was careful to slip them in where no one would notice, as the managers weren't usually watching and would initial the sheet all at once rather than check the actual carts. I would throw in an extra cart now and then, giving me an average of 13 to 15 instead of 8 to 10. They never caught on. They even praised us because our sales numbers were only made possible by our stellar production, which I knew was complete BS, because a third of my numbers weren't real, so no, production did not equal more sales. Then I transferred to being a forklift driver instead, and the anxiety was gone. I loved organizing the warehouse, helping others get the materials they needed for the job. It was awesome. Sadly, the pay wasn't, so I did eventually have to leave. Story 24. My wife's stepdad told me in private that he was told by her mom that she, my wife, was a product of mistreatment by her biological father. That tormented me for a couple of years because I didn't know what to do with it. During that time, my wife was struggling with her relationship with her mom. She just never felt like her mom loved her, but instead hated her for some reason. I decided to tell her what I'd been told. Now I struggle with the fact that she now knows that, but she hasn't brought that up with her mom to find out if it's true or to talk about it. Story 25. Details about previous intimate experiences. I was a little insecure about my size and my skill as a lover because my first wife left me for someone else, and in the last year of our relationship, she was annoyed and irritable in bed. I felt I just couldn't please her. Discovering she had an affair didn't help. When I finally remarried, my new wife asked me if I ever tried it in the back, and I said no. And I made the mistake of asking her if she did. She told me that she had done it lots with her ex so much she was worried she was going to be incontinent. This was a guy who was a real winner when it came to getting women. I knew 5 different women who slept with him and 2 who had cancellations because of him. After she told me this detail, I felt sick, like I was a loser and would never be good enough. I hated myself for being insecure and envied guys like her ex who didn't have my self-hatred. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 26. How I really feel about the termination we had. My wife once got pregnant by accident. I wanted to have the baby, but she didn't want more kids. I tried to convince her without pressuring her that we could manage one more kid, but she was adamant. So we went through with it and I was with her through the whole process, but there is a small part of me that passed away that day. Story 27. My dad made a comment that stuck with me when I was a kid. My mom had made dinner and I didn't like it, so I was complaining about the food and my mom got upset. I was like 5 or 6. Later on, my dad sat me down and said, "Someday, you'll have a girlfriend or a wife, and if you want her to be happy, never complain about the food she cooked for you. Even if you hated it, just smile and eat." Story 28. The only thing I've kept from my husband was that I knew exactly when he was going to propose. He left a to-do list on his desk and I saw "pick-up ring" on it. We'd been talking about marriage and our future for a while, but when it's on your vacation packing list, kinda gives it away. I'll never tell him. He loves telling the story about how I was completely surprised. Story 29. That the big stick she ran over the other day was actually a cat that ran out into the road. I watched in slow-motion horror as this cat came out of nowhere in front of our car without giving us any time to react. She even thought it might have been a cat, but I had to lie about it being just a stick because she would have had a true breakdown if she knew. I was actually pretty depressed about it for a week or so, but it was a burden that I was willing to bear alone so that she wouldn't have to. Story 30. First anniversary gifts, or any gifts really. It's tricky receiving stuff in the mail, especially packages, without them either finding out and getting curious or them finding the item later. I got my stuff delivered to my neighbor who knew it was coming, and I retrieved it from her when my wife wasn't here one day. But I brought it into our apartment so I know I have it and know where it is. I just don't know how good my hiding spot is. If my wife decides to go on a deep cleaning or organizing frenzy one day, it could be bad. Another couple weeks though, and it will all be worth it. Story 31. Text messages and access to each other's social media accounts. My best friend does this with his girlfriend, and it causes a lot of issues as she has turned out to be incredibly controlling, threatening to leave him if he doesn't share every message he sends and receives. I'm worried about losing him. As if it doesn't stop, I will have no choice but to stop messaging him ever, because I don't want his girlfriend snooping. Story 32. Maybe unpopular and definitely coming from experience. Talks with friends about relationships when things are not going well. The boyfriend of my friend had a terrible reaction to something that was his own fault, and my friend cried and suffered because he was angry with her. We talked together, and of our group of 4, 2 of us told her this was not the first time and that he was being dumb and etc. A few things that were pretty red flags and whatever. Private things you talk with friends. A few weeks later, I found out he blocked me off Instagram and then from the message app. They know each other because he used to be my friend and I presented them. Turns out my friend told her boyfriend what we talked about that time. I mean, I don't think it's bad he blocked me, but I think it's just dumb that she had to talk about it all. Story 33. My wife and I both gained a bunch of weight during the vid. We've been working hard to get back in shape and doing well. She's lost 20 pounds, I've lost 30. But now that I'm back at work in my physically active job, I can afford to cheat in her healthy diet occasionally. But I don't want to rub it in her face while she's working so hard. She also gets frustrated if I lose weight much faster than her. So occasionally I stop at Taco Bell or Wawa on the way home from work, eat some junk food during my commute, then stop at the gas station a block from her house and throw away the wrappers before I get home. Story 34. I have a close female friend. We had intimacy a handful of times, 3 years before I met my wife. There's been no romantic interest between us since that time. I don't plan on ever telling my wife because I don't think it would do any good whatsoever. I didn't plan on keeping it a secret, but too much time has passed for me to tell her now. My wife and I have been together for 12 years. I've lost my V card to this friend, so it has been hard dodging the let's laugh about it first time conversation. Story 35. Don't ask me how this came up in conversation, but a pair of married friends of mine revealed that when one of them is in the shower brushing their teeth, the other would come in and take a crap at the same time. I don't care how close you are with someone. You will never convince me that hanging around in the same room, hearing or smelling them isn't weird and gross. Lol. Story 36. If there was overlap between a previous relationship of theirs and their relationship with you, my now wife was seeing other people while we were getting started to date, but before we were exclusive. She wasn't entirely honest about her past when we got into talking about it. She brought it up to begin with. I feel I would have been better off either never knowing about the overlap at all or being told the entire truth up front. What I got instead was a partial truth about when things happened that wasn't revealed to be a half-truth until nearly a decade into our relationship, when she slipped up and said something she shouldn't have. She fought me to suppress it after letting the cat out of the bag, which only did further damage. It did a lot of damage to our relationship and felt like a massive betrayal. I felt like it rewrote our history together and ruined many otherwise happy memories of the weeks leading up to the start of our relationship, because she had been intentionally dishonest about the time frames around that time period. Finding out about that made me question what else she might have been dishonest about. I've since repaired much of the damage from all that in therapy, but it was a long, tough road to travel. To people starting to date, I would offer 2 pieces of advice. Number 1, talking about the past can be dangerous. There needs to be a conversation before getting into talking about the past that sets up the boundaries of what to talk about and what not to talk about. Just how open about it all you each want to be needs to be established and agreed upon before ever approaching that box. Some might be fine with details, some may want to leave the past entirely in the past. Figure out where you fit in that spectrum up front and then proceed accordingly. Number 2, whatever level you decide, stick to it. What got us into trouble is we operated from a perspective of no secrets and no skeletons in the closets. I emptied mine, but she held some of hers back. Don't do that. If there's things you can't or won't talk about, then be honest about that up front and don't ever go there. Whichever choice you make, commit to it. Story 37. I will absolutely not talk about my endeavors of the past. My husband sometimes wonders why I will not do something and uses the, how do you know if you have never tried? Then I get angry when I say I have and that's why I don't like it. He gets upset if he knows I did something with someone else but won't with him. I will also never tell him what substances I've tried. He tends to judge me for my past even though I'm nowhere near being that person anymore. Story 38. The exact amount of vacation time you have at work. Case in point, when I worked for GE, I traveled regularly. One of my coworkers also traveled for work, often 45 days at a time. While we got 4 weeks of vacation time per year in our roles, he told me that he enjoyed 2 of those weeks with his wife and family. He enjoyed the other 2 weeks to retreat in peace and quiet in his own, They have a healthy marriage and have been married over 30 years now. Story 39. We're both on different ends of the political spectrum, and it's definitely been toxic sometimes. I love him, but I do not understand how he could be so damn brainwashed by the right. His family's the same, and I'm sitting there rolling my eyes, but I can't say anything because it would bring on drama or arguments. I don't want that. I just wish that wasn't part of him because it's very difficult to go through life not agreeing on certain topics that impact us. It sometimes gets personal, and I almost have PTSD even talking about politics. Story 40. My good kitchen utensils. My wife uses anything to cut everything. Carrots for the bread utensil? Sure. Sandwiches with a santoku? Why not? Tomatoes with a steak utensil? Of course. Then she chucks them into the dishwasher. I can't count how many times I've asked her to stop and use the right utensil or wash by hand, so now I bought a couple good ones and they're hidden. Story 41. I've been in a relationship for 31 years. I was mistreated 2.5 years ago by someone I thought was a friend and that I liked, but never in an intimate way. I was devastated. And to this day, I've never told them, and I hate having such a secret, but the counselor told me it would never help them if they knew, as it can put them back to where you were mentally, as they couldn't protect you. This is a hell of a secret to keep. During 2020, etc., I often cry and they can't help me even when they give me a hug. It made me question everything. Story 42. My ex-girlfriend told me she was mistreated when we broke up. We're still amazing friends, but I really wish she told me earlier. She had moments when she wouldn't let me touch her. Not even a hug or hold her hand while she was crying. Made me feel horrible and like I did something wrong. Like I said, she told me after we broke up and everything made so much more sense. I do wish I could have done something for her, but I know I'm not to blame and that I helped her incredibly by showing her not all guys are schmucks. She often tells me how thankful she is. I'm always there for her and for all the things I've done for her, respecting her and her body and never forcing anything. Being respectful to each other is the most important thing in a relationship, in my opinion. But maybe that's just because of how my parents are raising me. So maybe telling your partner wouldn't be the wrong thing to do, especially if it's messing with you mentally. If he's good to you, he'll understand that you feel bad about not telling him sooner and he'll be there for you. But I can't make this decision for you. I'm here if you need to talk. You can send me a private message whenever you want to. Just remember, you're not alone. Story 43. She doesn't need to know that I told my best friend that I loved her around the time we started dating. I was explicitly platonic. We were both there for each other in our darkest times, and she was a really good person. She gave me a call. I ditched my friends to talk to her, and she was miserable, crying and driving while a bit buzzed, and I just wanted her to be okay, and I wanted to make her feel better. That's my greatest sin. I really like to make others feel good, even though I probably shouldn't say this or that because it can be misinterpreted even if I make it very specific. I know how my girl would react and what she would think and say about it. It's just for the best that she doesn't know it because she already really didn't like her. Story 44. I think hobbies and activities that the other person isn't interested in can be kept singular. For example, my wife enjoys going to the zoo regularly. It's almost an hour drive each way and a lot of walking around. Plus, it's hot outside. I'll go occasionally, like maybe once out of every 3 or 4 trips. She's not going alone, mind you. Also, getting substances at kids' birthday parties that I don't know either parent or kid can be horrible experiences for me. The more of that stuff I can gracefully bow out of is best for our relationship. Plus, it allows me to tidy up the house, dishes, laundry, etc., without anyone distracting me. Story 45. Past partners and experiences. My ex-significant other is 50, never married and never had kids. I'm divorced and have children, so when it comes to pasts, mine is bland, whereas hers has 30 years or so of singledom. When we first started dating, she would say random things like, "The guy in the shop is into me," as he smiled and had a little chat. I said that he was carrying out customer service. Her ex had his own plane, and anytime one would fly over the house, she would be convinced it was him spying on her. She would get hammered and her mouth would just run. I found out she was sleeping with her tenant who had moved out about 6 months before us. She dated 2 women as a phase. She told me all her family drama with parents and siblings, and it's mental. She had 2 terminations with her ex. They were broken up at the time, and it was a one-night thing each time. She goes to horse racing events and would meet potential Southerners, and if they couldn't give her what she wanted, she would string them along and dump them. She would tell me about a weekend away that she and her friend went on, and in fairness, nothing hectic, just a few antics. When we were in the company of her friend and husband, they mentioned something. They passed a comment about the weekend that they got up to. Her friend obviously didn't say anything to her husband about the antics and got so much grief for saying something. I just thought that if she was telling me this, all her friends did the same with their partners. Obviously not. So yes, I'm of the opinion that we don't need to know every detail of our ex-significant other's past. Story 46. My girlfriend at the time, now wife, got mad because I had a few girls on my Facebook as friends. Girls that I've known forever that are married and have kept in touch with them for the past 20 years. Anyway, she kept asking me about them and was jealous, so after explaining myself at length a few times and getting upset myself, I ended up unfriending my wife from my Facebook. She got upset about it and I said, "What? You can't see them anymore, so what's the big deal?" We're still not Facebook friends and she no longer tries to get into my Facebook or look into any of my stuff. I don't ever want to look into her stuff either. If you start looking through your partner's phone or email for crap, is a big sign that your relationship is probably over already. Story 47. My girlfriend shared with me a journal she kept of everyone she'd ever been with that kept records of the experience. I want to be sure that everyone knows I wasn't snooping around. She thought it'd be a good idea to show me. I learned from that experience that I'm a very secure person. But it made me uncomfortable reading the logs she kept, and it definitely affected me for a few days. But I got over it and we're going on 4 years strong. My bottom line is that it's one thing to share the number of people you've slept with. That's a normal conversation to have with your significant other, but keep the details to yourself. Story 48. If it exists, I haven't found it yet. Yesterday was an incredibly vulnerable and emotional day for my significant other and I. I realized she may have gone through some ridiculously serious trauma as a young child, and when I asked, she immediately started crying and saying she could never tell anyone. After a while, she calmed down and I decided to tell her the one thing I swore to myself I would never tell anyone. A trauma so horrible and deep-rooted that nobody could ever know. And found out she had experienced the same thing. That's what her trauma was. It was the same thing I'd gone through. We've never been closer. Story 49. Conversations with your adult kids from a previous marriage. My mother remarried when I was in my late 20s. It was a quick engagement, and seems to have worked out well the past decade, so that's fantastic. I was always close with my mother, and would confide in her if I had some issues about something. Could be work, could be current events, could be personal anxieties, etc., etc. What bothered me was when I came to their home for Christmas for the first time. There were a few hours when he and I were alone in the house. My new stepfather asked me to sit down at the living room with him, and I figured we were going to have a get-to-know-you session. Nope, he just leveled me with, "You shouldn't talk to your mother about politics. You're an adult. You shouldn't be talking to your mother about anxiety. Get a therapist," type stuff. He knew everything I'd said over the past year in private, even my concerns about having not met him before they even got married. The one person I trusted the most for 30 years could no longer be trusted as a confidant. Still can be. Stings a bit. Story 50. Details on who you dated, e.g. names, pictures, etc. I told my girlfriend about my previous relationships. All of them. What made them end and everything except those details I mentioned. It's nice to tell your flaws. Be open about where you went wrong and where you were hurt by someone else. I know she's kind of insecure and curious. She proceeded to spend months bringing the subject up like, "Tell me their names. Why can't you tell me?" It was so much that yesterday I told her the names of the 4 ex-girlfriends I had and told her that I don't want to hear a word about that subject anymore. Reason I didn't want to mention was because of her insecurity. I think she's the best and hot AF, but she's skinny and likes the society patterns of beauty, and I dated completely different types of women in these 4 relationships, so I didn't want her to go snooping around photos of them and coming back to say that she thinks someone else was hotter, etc. And she said, "Are you afraid to share because they're better than me?" And I replied, "If they were better, I wouldn't have broken up." What potentially relationship-ending secrets are you keeping from your significant other? I just started dating a sweet, intelligent, hilarious, super dorky guy. He's Christian, and I think quite conservative. His family is quite traditional too. He held on to his V-card for a while and is definitely not the kind of guy who sleeps around. He's perfect for me in every way. I don't want to screw this up. I have no idea how to tell him I worked as a street worker for a while, and it's not something I can keep from him with a clear conscience if this goes anywhere. Pretty sure it could completely change his view on me. Story 2. I am heavily fixated to substances. When we first met, she found out, but at the time she was just a friend of a friend, so I didn't care how she felt about it. After about a month, we bumped into each other and I asked her out. One of the first things she asked me on our first day was if I was sober. I lied and said I was clean. We've been together for about 9 months now, and I've been using for 3 years. The main reason she wants me to get clean is because she doesn't want to find me unresponsive one day. She even asked a friend who used substances to leave her house when that friend offered me some. I love her, and I don't want to lose her. I know I should get clean for my own well-being, but I just can't seem to stop. Story 3. I am not in a relationship because I feel that my secret would inevitably end it. I cannot, under any circumstances, imagine someone accepting me. especially in a long-term relationship, due to the nature of my past. My father harmed my sister and physically harmed me regularly. I feel like anyone who hears that thinks, why would I want the son of someone like that to be the father of my child? Every time I'm paralyzed with fear when I go to meet anyone new, let alone a girl, because I feel like I'm lying or hiding. I just can't get away from it and it haunts me everywhere I go. I feel like a monstrosity most days, so I don't meet new people and I feel like I have to inevitably accept a life of solitude. Story 4. I desperately want to leave for the other side of the earth for a year or two. Not because of her, but because for over a quarter of a century I haven't moved from this place and I need to get out before I have no chance of fulfilling this dream of mine, Australia, anymore because of real-life obligations. But of course, 6 months before finalizing crap, I have to fall in love with the most intelligent, caring, patient, sexy blonde bombshell I've ever seen. And she with me. Story 5. This isn't so much a secret as something he never wants to hear about. He really dislikes my beliefs in the occult and refuses to listen if I ever bring them up, so in light of this, I speak to another friend about it, a male friend. My significant other would probably be really mad and upset if he knew I was confiding in another man, and on one level, he's right, but on another level, if he was accepting of my beliefs, I wouldn't have to find other confidants. Either way, this is a lose-lose situation, and I hate it. Story 6. I don't think it would be a relationship ender, but at best, he'd be upset. I'm often embarrassed to be around him in public. Sometimes he's just too touchy-feely. He doesn't know how to dress properly for anything more formal than Izzy's, and he doesn't know when to knock off the bad words. Just yesterday, we were at an event where he started swearing in front of a bunch of children, at an event where bad words weren't 100% appropriate, but frowned on outside a certain context. This was definitely where he was inappropriate, and he likes to say bad words loudly. I'm just downright embarrassing, and I know if I flat out told him about it, there would be issues. I feel like we can never do nice things because of how he dresses and behaves. Story 7. Dad, I want to marry her. We've only been going out for 2 weeks. I accidentally Ted Mosby'd her yesterday, but she happily returned the sentiments. Everything just seems so easy and natural, unlike my other relationships. I can be myself, she can be herself. There's no judgment, mind games, or trying to impress. I just feel it in my gut that she's the one for me. I am aware that I'm basically overtly attached boyfriend, so I'm not going to pop the question anytime soon because I don't want to freak her out. I'm also aware that it could just be the exciting part of a new relationship starting and feelings will fade. But it's going to be a thought buried in my chest waiting to burst out in the next year or so. Story 8. I used a man for a place to live for 6 months. I was young and had nowhere to go. What makes matters worse is I told him I love him, and when I left him, I didn't give a straight-up reason. He stalked me for a year, and now he's just depressed and misses me, and his life is pretty messed up, and his existence reminds me every day why I shouldn't use people. I feel terrible. I'm sorry. Please don't end yourself. Story 9. We're not together anymore, but I still refuse to tell him this. No point hurting him now. A male friend took advantage of me when I was intoxicated. It was an essay. I didn't know how to approach stopping it, so I just tried to pretend like it wasn't happening. I essentially cheated, I guess. I've never done that before, never will again, but I learned a big lesson in avoiding getting myself into these situations. I trusted my friend and he took advantage of that. Responsibility is mine, though. Story 10. I am completely and utterly bored with her. She's a boring person. Boring in bed, boring to be around. She can be spiteful and is often really witchy. All I want to do is get the hell out of my hometown and see the world, but every time I think of moving or changing careers, she kicks it in and I give it up. I have frequent thoughts about ending one of us to get out of the relationship. Not sure which. The only reason I stay in it is that I think it'd be more of a mess to get out than it's worth. It's not a horrible life, but it's not what I'd picture for myself at all. And there are many days where I'd rather just see what's on the other side of the veil than stay here. If not for the hell I'd put my kids through. Story 11. I love my girlfriend immensely. She's great with my son, has amazing long-term potential, and we get along great. But I can't get over my best friend who moved away. They were exact copies of each other and had great chemistry. We both admitted we had feelings, but never went into detail over anything before she moved. I've never felt that spark that I felt with her more than anyone else, and it hurts me every time I think about it. Story 12. This girl who used to have a thing for me kissed me when we were both intoxicated one day before she left for college in a different city, in public. I told my girlfriend about this the very next day. The only problem with the story is I was in my senses. I had been passing a couple of hints for quite a while before the kiss, and when she kissed me, I grabbed her and held nothing back. I love my girlfriend a lot. The only reason I kissed the other girl is because I knew she was never coming back and I did care about her, but I'm pretty sure I'd be screwed if my girlfriend ever found out. Story 13. This isn't necessarily a relationship ending, but it's something that I think about almost on a daily basis. I met my wife when we were both sophomores in college. The night we met, I knew I had very strong feelings for her. She was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen, and I was pretty intimidated by her. We met at a bar that night and went back to her house with mutual friends, her roommate, and my buddy.
I didn't try to pursue her strongly that night because I didn't want to push her away if I struck out. She lived in a house with 6 girls, and this guy called asking for directions. I thought to meet one of her roommates. Gave the guy directions to the house before I left with my buddy for the night. Turns out the guy was a creep from the bar and had been trying to sleep with my now wife. She thought I was going to do what most guys would have done, give him wrong or bad directions so he wouldn't show up. He ends up coming into the house and finding my wife in bed asleep. She woke up to him because of me. And that's the story of how I met my wife. It haunts me almost every day. Story 14. I really hate his kids. His 2 from a previous relationship, and we have 1 together. It is to the point where I wish he did not have full custody so he can raise our son alone. His daughter is 17 and his son is 14. His daughter is the nastiest person ever. She hardly showers or changes clothes. She steals my garments and ruins them. You know it is bad when you get them from the laundry and it is black and stiff after they've been through the wash. My boyfriend, his mother, and myself have tried talking to her about it, but nothing changes. We have to yell at her to keep her bedroom door closed because the stank is so bad. His son is just annoying. He's not mature for his age. He still watches WWE, which is not a huge issue, but watches it while playing with action figures. The way he talks is like talking to a 5-year-old. I've tried to build a relationship with him, but nothing has worked. I can only hope that as soon as they turn 18, they move out. Story 15. Off topic, but if you're cheating on your SO, just please do them a favor and break up with them. Relationships should be exclusive, and if you're seeing other people on the side, just do everyone a favor and end it. That way you can go to sleep with all the girls or guys you want, and you won't have to continue a relationship you obviously shouldn't be in. Story 16. I've been on the edge of breaking up with my girlfriend for quite some time now. I feel like she's been the main reason why I haven't been able to take any kinds of risks for myself. I'm 23 and feel like I've wasted away 2+ years dating her. She's 22 and is extremely unmotivated. She doesn't go to school or work. She pretty much sits around at home all day waiting for me to get back from work or school. I've thought to get her up and going on with her life, but she seems to be stuck in a rut. I've tried talking, giving incentives, anything, really, to get her going, but nothing's worked. Story 17. About 3.5 years ago, I thought my then on and off boyfriend of 5 years and I were going to break up. At the time, I met up with my married ex-boyfriend who I thought was getting divorced. I just learned his wife cheated on him and just so happened to have intimacy in his car. The ex later admitted that he planned it. I naively thought we were just going out for drinks and to chat, well, maybe fool around a bit, but I wasn't planning to have intimacy with him. It happened anyway, but I didn't feel as bad as I could because I thought my boyfriend and I would be breaking up soon anyway. Since I thought my on and off again boyfriend and I were breaking up, I told a bunch of people I slept with my ex, but then married ex-boyfriend conveniently decided that secretly sleeping with me in his car was enough revenge and he didn't need that divorce after all, and soon stopped talking to me again. After I realized the ex wasn't leaving wifey poo after all, I became terrified that my boyfriend would find out I had intimacy with my ex. Suddenly staying with him became all important. A couple years later, formerly on and off boyfriend and I got married. Most of the wedding party, both his friends and mine, knew I'd cheated years before, but no one said anything to my husband. I worry myself sick that he'll find out. Some of my friends have said that it was years ago and that they think my husband wouldn't be that upset if he found out now, but I think the fatal combo of 1, the ex in question, it's a guy I've always been borderline obsessed with. Number 2, that I kept the secret for so long, and number 3, that so many people know would throw my husband over the edge. I assume that if he ever finds out, the marriage is over, but I suspect that many people can't keep a secret forever. Sooner or later, someone's going to say something. It's just a question of when. In hopes it'll entice my husband to sticking around, I cook him amazing meals and have intimacy whenever he wants to. He thinks I'm just a good wife. I'm actually just waiting for him to find out and get ready to dump me. Story 18. Before dating my girlfriend, I was with a girl for something like 8 years. I was certain we were going to marry and be together forever, but for some reason I just felt like we weren't going to be able to make it work out with our lives going separate ways. Job, college, massive long distance. I wanted it to, but I ended it because I thought it'd be best for us both. It worked out well for both of us, and that we did succeed more in life. My ex just got married a few weeks ago to second place. I call him second place because that's what he is, and she and I both know it. Prior to her getting married, we professed to each other that we still love each other after I had a fight with my girlfriend. My ex said, after getting married, that if I'd asked for her back just then, she would have come running. I didn't, because I wanted to have integrity and not break up her relationship nor mine. I just wanted to make things work for everyone. It was the easiest way for all involved. My girlfriend and I's fight then has really put a wedge in our relationship for me, emotionally. I'm not able to connect with her anywhere near where I was before. I feel like she's only a friend these days. Still feel that way was best, but every day I think about her, and every day I know that if he found herself single again, they'd be back together. We were perfect for each other. The timing and distance just got in the way. My girlfriend knew this, she'd probably end me. Story 19. I'm certain I'm the worst person posting on this thread. I basically have 2 boyfriends who both know who the other person is because they have both been exes before, but Neither of them know I still talk to the other. See, one of them lives far away, but we made an agreement when I was broken up from my current legitimate boyfriend that we would get married at 31 or 32 years of age. I got back together with my current boyfriend and never told him about that. Never broke it off for the previous guy because 32 is still 5 years off, and I was head over heels in love with him in college. Thing is, that's not the worst part. I'm boy crazy. There's one different ex in particular I would drop everyone for, but he's in no state to be in a relationship, but I still sleep with him every now and again. I tell some guys I'm in an open relationship. I'm not, really. Some are fine with that and some aren't, but I'll take the ones that don't care. I don't have intimacy outside of my relationship often, but I have a serious lack of control when it comes to that one ex of mine. The boyfriend doesn't know I ever see him, and I try to keep it infrequent. Sometimes I tell myself I can be with him. I don't know if I can. Worse, I don't know what I want to do. I think I'm trying to make up for lost time. I never felt good enough to have any of the attractive guys when I was young, but now I know I can. I am horrible. Story 20. I was essayed by a guy I had been dating for a few months. I was naive at the time, didn't realize it was essay since we were together when it happened, and I blamed myself for years. We broke up immediately after, for obvious reasons, and didn't stay in contact. I went on to get stuck in a verbally and physically cruel relationship with my high school sweetheart, different guy, for about 3 years, staying mostly because I didn't think I could do any better or that anyone would want me after what happened. About 5 years after being essayed and a few weeks after breaking up with my ex for the last time, I met a guy at the gym and we instantly hit it off. We started hanging out every day, and I finally started to realize I was capable of achieving a healthy relationship. To my horror, about a week into spending almost every day together, I found out his childhood best friend who had gone to a different high school than him was the person who essayed me. They've been together for 2 years now, live together, have a cat together, and he's my absolute best friend and the most amazing person I know. He knows I was essayed, and he knows I was in an unhealthy relationship, but I just can't bring myself to tell him his best friend was the one who completely destroyed my sense of self-worth, and I don't think I ever will. Story 21. 2 weeks ago, I made things official with my now SO after a couple of months of having the most fun ever with her. Things were going great, and I'm really happy with her. Previously, I was sleeping with a girl who had a boyfriend. Now, my SO is about to move into a flat with a boyfriend of the girl I was sleeping with, and I don't know if I can tell her or not. To make things even more complicated, we've just found out she's pregnant, and it definitely was not planned. I don't want to lose her, but I can't feel like a decent person if I let her live with a guy whose girlfriend cheated on him with me and not say anything. Story 22. Been thinking seriously about divorcing my wife. Nothing terribly wrong with the relationship, just so many small things. BS things, really. Man, have they had one hell of a cumulative effect. Honestly, I'm not even sure why I'm unhappy or why I feel like divorce would lead to happiness ultimately. At this point, though, I haven't made a move because of my son. I hate the idea that something I feel will make me happy would turn her world upside down. We've been together for 4 years now, and the whole time, before we got married, before the kid came along, I've been thinking about leaving her. Quite a pickle I'm in. Story 23. If I catch him smoking another cigarette, I'll end a relationship right then and there. We have a very good, healthy, and loving relationship. When we first began dating, I told him that I hate cigarettes and my reasons why. He agreed and told me he only ever smoked cigarettes very occasionally and only when he's hammered. I asked him if he could please not smoke cigarettes anymore, given my feelings about them, and he agreed. He went to his friend's cottage for a weekend and everyone there got hammered. Now I can tolerate being in a room with people who are smoking cigarettes. That's fine. Most of his friends were pretty much chain-smoking the majority of the time, and late that night I went looking for him and found him, sitting in his brother's car smoking a cigarette. I felt so betrayed. He told me he wouldn't smoke a cigarette. Later, when we were both sober and things were fine for a few months, until I caught him for a second time this summer, where he gave the excuse for it being tradition to batch in and he was doing a batch bowl. No bowl present, mind you. I was understandably mad. He started getting defensive but dropped it when everyone else vetoed the batch. The last week of her summer job, I went to give him a good night kiss and he tasted like dirt and smoke. Story 24. Around a week after I met my current significant other, I received a message from an old on and off friend with benefits. Want to grab a drink? I understood his real intention and I wasn't sure if I was interested. As I mentioned at this time, my current SO and I hadn't known each other long and had only been on 1 or 2 dates. We weren't exclusive and hadn't been intimate, but aside from that, things seemed promising. I also wasn't looking for anything serious. In the autumn, I would be moving out of the country, so I didn't want to get too attached. I viewed our budding relationship mostly as a fun summer fling. When we weren't being intimate, my old friend with the benefits and I were fairly good friends. I convinced myself there was no harm in going, as I could just catch up with him and leave it at that. What could be the harm? When we met up, he noticed I was a bit more reserved than usual, and I ended up telling him I was casually dating someone. That's cool, he said. No pressure. We'll just have a drink and chat and then go our separate ways. Needless to say, that's not exactly what happened. Even though I know my SO and I hadn't agreed to be exclusive at the time, looking back on it, I feel quite terrible. We ended up falling pretty hard for each other, and I think it would deeply hurt him if he knew. Nobody else knows, and I doubt he'll ever find out, but I'm just constantly blaming myself internally for how I handled the beginning of our otherwise wonderful relationship. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 25. I had previously experienced severe depression and attempted to end it all. Felt a dangerous sense of invincibility due to my depression. I would often drive 130 miles per hour on the highway, feeling a complete disregard for everything. One night, I decided to provoke an altercation, alone, with 4 large football players from my college. I struck one individual forcefully and he was thrown backward. I then verbally insulted the others. They escorted me outside. One of them circled around the bar, pretending to be a concerned bystander. I didn't recognize him at first, as I had already received strikes from him. He asked if I needed help, and as I began to respond, he unexpectedly struck me. I was then hit from behind, knocked to the ground, which resulted in a concussion. They also took my wallet, phone, and watch. At the hospital, I reported that I was jumped and robbed, not that I had instigated the fight. A police officer found me unconscious in a ditch. I experienced nausea for 2 days from the head trauma, which prevented me from taking painkillers. I am no longer depressed. I also now understand what it feels like to be severely beaten. Story 26. My boyfriend is 20 and still lives with his parents who make him pay for everything and only leave him $50 of his check and also take money from his oldest brother. They don't work much at all and are really irresponsible and lose things and break promises. They won't make his younger brother, who is old enough to work, get a job and he just sits around on his bum all day. His second oldest brother, J.A., had 2 kids out of wedlock, one while he was in high school and one he got someone pregnant. His parents treated J.A. like a perfect little son, paid for everything, took away his oldest brother's car to give to J.A. and didn't make J.A. get a job. He doesn't pay for his kids and cheated on his wife, who's the mother of one of his kids. If my boyfriend were to get me pregnant, they would kick him out and not help him at all. To get to the point, I love my boyfriend with everything in me and he's the one for me, but when we get married and have kids, I don't want his parents having anything to do with our kids. I won't leave him alone with them because I don't trust him and none of my money will be going to them. He comes from a culture where family is a big deal. It's huge in my family too, but not so much a culture thing. I just can't stand them and will want to stay away from them and keep my babies from them. Story 27. When I was in high school, Catholic school, I wrote a pretty detailed note to a friend about how I got my whistle from my girlfriend. I got caught writing it in class, so the teacher took the note from me. Multiple teachers read the note because none of the female faculty felt comfortable handling the situation. I did not get in much trouble because the male teacher was a pretty reasonable and progressive dude for a Catholic school. My girlfriend was a very type A overachiever at school and would have been horrified if she knew some of the faculty had seen that note. I never told her about it and word never got to her. We dated all the way through high school for another year and a half before we broke up. A typical moving on to college breakup. To this day, she does not know that happened. Story 28. Things didn't work out with the SO, so I guess this is harmless. But the intimacy with my ex, before most recent SO, was always an adventure. She was always willing to try new things and was always enthusiastic. She wasn't afraid to tell me what she wanted and was definitely never shy about telling me when she wanted to do it. She was spontaneous, i.e. surprise whistles, intimacy whenever and wherever, which was the biggest turn-on for me. Intimacy with my most recent SO is different. Not bad, in any sense of the word, but definitely different. Maybe more vanilla. But the main difference was it's as if we never really had intimacy. The feelings and emotions were incredibly genuine. I was wildly attracted to her. She has an amazing body, which always turned me on, and when it came to making love, it was an incredible experience and I enjoyed every moment of it with her. But I don't think I would ever have been able to tell her I wish she was a little more spontaneous, and I certainly wouldn't tell her what my ex and I had done because it isn't about comparing the two. It's just that I enjoy the spontaneous nature and free spirit attitude when it comes to intimacy and would have loved to have experienced them with my most recent SO. Story 29. There are 2 main things on my mind, actually. First, I frequently check her texts and social media. I don't go through her phone directly, but I review the phone bill to see who she's texting and when. I also discovered her private blog. When something is bothering her, she'll post sad gifs and quotes there. She doesn't know that I'm aware of it, but I check it regularly, even if it's been months since her last update. Earlier in our relationship, she was texting frequently with a guy out of state, and I believe their connection deepened. I was being distant and unresponsive at the time, so I don't really blame her too much for that. Since working through those issues, we've been doing well. However, I continue to monitor her texts to ensure the other person respects her decision to make things work with me. She used that blog to express a lot of feelings about him, so I think she'd be quite upset to know that I've seen it all. Second, our intimate life has become difficult and unsatisfying, and I feel she largely contributes to this. It seems like she rarely reaches satisfaction, and I'm left feeling exhausted. Engaged for a while, but she doesn't really communicate her needs. She attempts to, organically, without speaking, change the rhythm or position, and often it results in a position that's challenging or uncomfortable for me. When I can't maintain it, she becomes disinterested or annoyed. She doesn't say anything, just continues until it becomes incredibly awkward. Story 30. For the last 4 years, while my husband has been in prison, I cheated on him. Yes, I know what that sounds like, and I've heard all the judgments. We'd been together for about 2 years when our son was 2 months old, and I discovered he had been unfaithful with multiple women throughout our relationship. It shattered me. I was immobile in bed, completely devastated. About a week later, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Now, most people would say, hey, I should end this relationship. Well, I'm not a quitter, so I just sort of stayed and supported him. Honestly, looking back, I don't know how I rationalized it. I might have been in that post-baby haze of no sleep and hormones. I don't know. My heart was foolish, my brain was just unkind. I wanted to get over him so badly. I wanted to stop feeling so pathetic. So I cheated with an ex. I thought it would empower me or perhaps help me move on. Not surprisingly, I didn't feel any better. We're still together. I've reassured him and lied multiple times that I haven't cheated, and he has told me many times that if I have, he never wants to know. He'll be home in 4 weeks, and I'm filled with both excitement and dread. I'm scared he'll come back and be terrible to me again, but I'm also scared that he'll come back and be amazing, and I will have complicated things. Story 31. I had a semi-intimate encounter with one of our now close mutual friends about a day or so before I became exclusive with my current boyfriend. It's a big, awkward secret. Context: when my current boyfriend and I first started seeing each other, I didn't want to be tied down since I just ended a 4-year relationship only 2 months earlier. However, I ended up falling for him very hard, and we've been dating for over a year now. We were seeing each other nearly every day for about a week or so, but I was still hesitant to start a new relationship so soon. One night, a few days before we became official, I got pretty buzzed and initiated an intimate moment with one of our mutual friends. He's a really sweet guy, but has had terrible luck with women. I was looking for a casual encounter and some fun. The friend was quite nervous, and the encounter was brief and awkward. All I could think about was my now boyfriend, so I ended the night short, and that was that. I started dating my boyfriend officially only a day or so later. Neither of us have ever told anyone else about that strange night, and the friend is in our very small inner circle of friends. He's no threat, but I know my boyfriend would be upset that I never told him, and would be quite bothered that I was intimate with someone else, especially his friend, so close to us becoming exclusive. I've wanted to tell him, but I think it would only cause trouble. If anything, it helped me realize that I didn't want to casually date and that I really cared for him and wanted to be serious. So there's that. Story 32. My religion, or lack thereof. When I started dating her, I had no idea that she, her parents, and every other person she associates with are serious with their Christianity. I didn't think blabbing about my atheism would be a proper way to really get to know her better, and I didn't know that she was so involved with her church, which is one of the ones that openly opposes gay marriage, openly discourages homosexuality, along with a few more cringeworthy opinions. Now it's at that point where I don't want to tell her, but at the same time, I don't think that I can shrug off all the religious stuff anymore. Has anyone ever had this dilemma before? Story 33. Not me, but I know a long-term acquaintance that has cheated on his girlfriend of 5+ years. It's a shame, he told me, because now I can't go out to meetups without feeling guilty and disgusted when I see her with him still. He's a piece of crap and doesn't deserve her, but she seemed like the type of person that would forgive his misdeeds after over 5 years of being with him. I don't have an SO, but if I had one that looked and was fun like her, I wouldn't freaking cheat on her, or anyone, for that matter. It's not right to do some crap like that just to see if you still got it, or some messed up BS like that. There's no excuse for it. Break up with her after that, you schmuck. Then again, I'm a bigger schmuck for not telling her, but I'm sure she'll find out soon enough from someone else who tries justifying himself too. Story 34. That I often think about ending it all, and I partially blame her, my SO. I had issues before my current relationship, but things she has done have buried me deeper in this hole of self-loathing and depression. I basically caught her seeing her ex a couple of months after her and her 2 kids moved into my house. She denied a lot of things, of course, but I kept catching her up in a lot of crap. I'm so desperate to be with her that I made myself believe all of her BS. This all unfolded about 1.5 years ago. Recent things have come to light, and I'm 99% sure she was sleeping with him for a few months behind my back. She admitted to going to hotels with him, but only for talking. I also found out that one of her best friends was actually someone she was casually involved with, despite denying it when I first asked. I'm still with her because I'm overly attached and can't stand the thought of being alone again and how much I'm going to self-destruct without her. I fell deeply in love with her way before she moved in. Can't stand how messed up I am, how emotional I am. I have to duck out at work sometimes because of how painful things feel and because of how obsessive I am with these thoughts of her infidelity and the uncertainty of who she really may be. I'm going absolutely crazy because of the dynamics of my emotions, but I pretend I'm happy and cool and just keep going along with it all. If she knew how insecure I am and how depressed and debilitated I am, she would probably leave. Story 35. Not me, but my neighbor has been hiding the fact that he's a serious substance user and has been for over 7 years from his girlfriend. They've been together for 4 of those 7 years. She is completely unaware of substances of any kind. Otherwise, she would have seen the signs by now, though he goes to extraordinary lengths to conceal it. Actually, this is a fairly common occurrence. More common than you might think, but it's rare that someone is able to keep a secret of that magnitude for so long. He's a pretty functional user, though he's becoming less and less so as time goes on. She will find out eventually, and I'd bet on their relationship ending after that. They have 2 young children as well, which makes it very sad. Before people start criticizing me for not telling her, I am one of 2 people who know about his habit and also know her. Individuals who conceal their fixation usually keep those parts of their lives and the people in them separate. Also, I'm a user in recovery, so he would probably suspect me immediately, and it would likely result in violence and damage to my property. He's one of those individuals prone to intense reactions, so meddling in his personal affairs could be dangerous. Trust me, I've contemplated and wrestled with this for some time. Story 36. As of a month ago, she's an ex-girlfriend for other reasons, but the big secret I kept was my real opinion of her mother's reputation. Her mother has a decent reputation with about 90% of the people who know her, and a terrible one with the remaining 10%. The 10% talk about some serious financial misconduct her mother allegedly committed, but the 90% dismiss it as baseless, claiming she was just part of a failed business venture. I told my ex that I didn't believe a single word of what the 10% said, except the 10% were right. When I started dating her, a friend of my family sat me down and presented what seemed like irrefutable evidence. It suggested that either her mother had a string of incredibly fortunate coincidences, akin to the plot of Forrest Gump, or she knowingly defrauded a number of people for over $100,000. There's no definitive proof that would lead to charges, as it was done very cleverly, but her mother is indeed involved in deceptive practices. Story 37. I'm currently dating someone who is 3 years younger than me. I'm 21 and she's 18. Before her, I had a few brief relationships and one that lasted 7 months. She, on the other hand, never even kissed a guy and was generally against the idea of dating. Given that this is a Muslim country and she comes from a fairly conservative family, her decision to be with me was quite significant. She's beautiful and intelligent, and many guys before me tried and failed to get her attention. She truly is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I love her more than anything else in the world. That's the kind of relationship where my parents, their friends, and my sisters adore her as much as I do. Her parents don't know about me, which creates a risk for her. My point is, I'm happy. However, she'll soon be going off to college, and I'm hoping to attend grad school. The chances of us ending up in the same place are, to say the least, slim. She's fine with that, believing her love will see us through, and I think we could manage too, but for the life of me, I can't imagine loving only her for the rest of my life. I can't imagine loving her more than I do, nor can I imagine loving anyone else more than I love her, but the thought of loving only her forever genuinely terrifies me. And for all her toughness and resilience, she takes things like this very hard, and her family situation is challenging. I can't tell her how I truly feel because she couldn't possibly relate to it. Story 38. In my last relationship, my long-distance boyfriend told me once that if he ever found out I'd smoked grass, he'd break up with me. Him not living here or being close with any of my friends, it was hard for him to know exactly when I smoked. For the first little while, it was fine. I felt no compulsion to smoke and I never indulged. And it was only when, nearly a year after, I started smoking and not telling him that I knew I had pretty much moved on from him. That led to me breaking up with him, though I never told him I smoked while we were dating. Story 39. It's a little late to the party here, but my girlfriend has a brother who is an alcoholic. He's really in a bad spot, basically throwing his life away in a matter of 3 years. He's been to rehab twice, and neither time has been effective. She feels terrible about the whole situation and has a fear of alcohol because of her brother's experience. We're about 18, and we have been dating for about 10 months now. Before I met her, I enjoyed going to parties and doing stupid stuff. Toned it down since we started dating, but I still drink every so often with my friends on weekends. Nothing serious. Just for fun after a football game every few weeks. I told her that my friends were going to drink after the game, carefully not mentioning me, and she said if I ever did, she would end the relationship. That was a month ago. Still do all the time. I feel bad. Thanks Reddit for letting me tell my story. Story 40. My girlfriend's father works from home. One day he asked for help with his computer. He stepped away and I opened the internet. I saw his email account was open. I browsed the first page of his recent emails and noticed about 5 from Eastern European women, clearly from a dating website. I proceeded to read one. The woman had attached a picture, and he had attached a picture of himself with his youngest daughter who was 10 years old. This confirmed it was indeed him, and he was even sending genuine photos. I forwarded those 5 emails to my own account, then I deleted the send messages from his inbox. He had no idea. That's right. He had no idea. My girlfriend's father divorced her mother, but is currently married and shows no signs of divorcing his current wife. He's an extremely sensitive person and gets upset very easily. My girlfriend and her family don't want me to convert to their religion, but they want their religion to dominate the household. I'm not in favor of this. I would prefer to raise a family with no apparent religion, just my own version of right and wrong. The father is probably the most influential person in my girlfriend's life. Due to this religious issue and my overall dissatisfaction with our relationship, I am planning on ending it. It's difficult, though, as we've been together for many years and lived together. I approached the father once and showed him the emails I'd been holding for years. He was completely shocked and had no idea what to say. I was 100% blindsided by it and had no idea what I was up to. I'm currently influencing him to slowly but surely encourage my girlfriend to break up with me. I'm too hesitant to break up with her directly for fear of deeply hurting her. Instead, I've chosen to guide her into breaking up with me, Come to think of it, I've never broken up with anyone, but I've influenced women to end relationships with me 3 times so far. And number 4 will be the most intricate rendition of this characteristic of mine. It's been 3 months since this plan was put into action. I specifically told the father to proceed very slowly. If he simply tells her that I'm no good after she's loved me for many years, that will raise suspicions. I get weekly updates from him. The strange part is, I feel like he's enjoying it, like he's getting a thrill out of the whole thing. Even stranger, so am I. What's the biggest secret that you've kept from your girlfriend or boyfriend? That I initially wanted to sleep with her divorced mother. Was the African champion in the 400-meter hurdles back in her day. She's South African. I only befriended the daughter to gain access to the mother. The mother straight up told me one day that I have such a handsome face. Her daughter considered this as validation that I was probably a good choice. When a girl's mother thinks the guy she's hanging out with is hot, it probably encourages her to move the relationship up to boyfriend and girlfriend status. Anyway, I ended up falling in love with the girl and didn't pursue her mother or my fantasy of sleeping with a hot mom. Now I'll have to wait until we've been married for 20 years and she's a hot mom herself before I'll get to fulfill my fantasy. Story 2. She's in Italy, living abroad for 3 months, so we're doing a long-distance relationship. I'm keeping a journal where I write a page about her every day. I write about what I love about her, what I think about her, memories we've shared, and times I was thinking about her. She doesn't know, but she does know there's some kind of surprise she will get. I haven't told her anything about it, and I'm really excited. It's really hard to write when we are in an argument. Please don't argue over text, it only makes things worse, but it's also really good because it makes me more mindful and requires me to constantly change my perspective in situations. I love her. Story 3. I'm not sure if this counts. The last girl I dated before I went to university assumed I didn't have much money because I don't really spend money on myself. I would obviously spend money for dates and gifts, but I've always had a low-cost, high-quality approach for dates, so our dates were well thought out, but not fancy. I figured out pretty quickly that she thought I was broke and didn't bother correcting her. I have money, but it's my family, so I've never thought of it as my own. She once saw my account balance when I was taking out some cash and got super angry. It was a bit of a schmuck move, but I didn't take advantage and make her pay for everything. Story 4. Ex, but she still doesn't know. I was having a dream about how badly I needed to whiz, running around not finding any toilets anywhere. I finally found one and started to whiz, except I really whiz. As an adult man, I started whizzing the bed. The relationship was already on the outs. I hated this girl. I rolled over her, whizzed all over her side of the bed because she's a super heavy sleeper, then shook her awake and told her she whizzed the bed. She was mortified. I never told a soul. I kept her secret for her. I welcome a downvotes and all comments on what a monster I am. Story 5. I never told my last girlfriend that I was bisexual. I just didn't see the point. Early on in our relationship, she admitted that she experimented with women in college. Since I'm not publicly out yet and she was clearly open to the idea, I simply didn't tell her. She never asked me directly, "Have you ever been with a man intimately?" So I don't feel like I lied to her, technically. I would never lie to her or cheat on her. I don't have any STDs and I know my way around a woman's parts. Does anything else really matter? Story 6. I might have cancer and I'm freaking out. He knows I have a lump. He knows I have a mammogram and ultrasound scheduled. He thinks that it's preventative, probably a cyst, NBD. That might be the case, but this thing is hard, irregularly shaped, and only as sensitive and tender as my normal tissue. There's a good chance I'm screwed. I'm not going to dump this on him till I get that mammogram and ultrasound and possibly biopsy. He has his own stuff going on, newly diagnosed anxiety, and I'm not going to add to it with bad news I'm unsure about. I am talking to friends and soon a counselor, so it's not like I'm keeping this bottled up. It's just not the right time to tell my husband. To me, it just seems like telling him that I might have cancer is akin to saying, I have this huge, uncomfortable pit in my stomach and my worries are crowding out my everyday thoughts. It's terrible. Want some? I mean, I know you have your own stuff going on, but have some of mine. Believe me, if I could keep this a secret from my own damn self, I would. I want to know a definite yes or no so I can either prepare or celebrate. Story 7. A few years ago, I had a full-on nervous breakdown and did some really bad stuff. I didn't hit rock bottom. I went straight through it and entered the 7th circle of hell. After the event, I ended up having 3 years of one-on-one and group therapy. The secret is that none of it worked. I am as scared, lonely, and messed up as I was before the breakdown. All the group and one-on-one therapy has done is telling me to hide it better and keep the distress under control. Everyone thinks I'm happy and have never been better. Story 8. We're 2 grown men who were dating for years before we got into a fully funded grad program a time zone away. We agreed that our connection was strong enough that we could fool around with other guys while we were long distance, as long as we didn't start relationships with them. Risky, I know, but it worked for us. That's not the secret. The secret is that one of the few guys I played around with as a prominent and successful member of the industry my fiancé, is trying to break into. Our interactions were grinder-based and logistical only, very minimal. I was upfront about my relationship status, but gave no details about my boyfriend or myself. I only learned who he was when a friend reposted him into my Twitter feed and I recognized his picture. We have friends in common, and there's a fairly good chance they're going to at least be at a party or industry meetup at some point in the future. I'm not telling him because the intimacy with my play friend was very, very good, and we did some things that my man isn't into, but I love, and I'm not ready to have that conversation. Story 9. My girlfriend is generally very cool with everything, but she does have a pretty strong jealous streak that she's managed to keep under exceptional control. However, in the 2 years that we were not together, in between casual dating and then for real dating, I had a few adventures. About a year into our for real dating, I let it slip that I had slept with someone. She froze on the spot. She looked at me with shock and horror before quickly getting her emotions under control a second later. I knew then I had crossed some invisible line in her head. "Tell me what happened," she asked in a calm voice. An hour later, I downplayed the situation to the point where she shrugged it off. I told her it was a one-night thing with someone she had never met, nor ever will meet, and that afterward we both parted ways amicably. All of that is true. However, I did not tell her that it was possibly my most fairy tale-like story. I know her from a study abroad program 3 years prior when we flirted and casually dated for a few months. On the last night before I flew home, we finally went further than we had before. She told me she loved me, but before we went further, I stopped myself and told her that I wanted her to have her first time with the right person. And as I was flying home the next day, it did not feel right. She agreed, and our mutual restraint did not dampen the night at all. So now, 3 years later, we met again for 2 nights in the French countryside. We drank spectacular wine and dined on fantastic French cuisine by day, and by night, this beautiful woman pulled me to bed and confessed that, all those years later, she wished that had been her first time back then, when we were both students. And since she had been hard at work with her studies, she had never experimented with anyone else, but now with me, her lost lover, she was ready. So we taught her the subtle art of love. We spent hours tangled in the streets of a small French apartment overlooking the moonlit city, and in the midnight hours of lost time that only lovers know, her legs shook, and she kissed me with a passion 3 years in the making. I flew away back to my home country. A year later, when I began dating my current girlfriend, I stopped communication with my foreign lover and have not seen her since. To be clear, one night of passion does not equate to a strong and healthy relationship, and I will not go back to my foreign lover. My current girlfriend is more beautiful than 7 seas of adventure and more exciting than 100 nights of foreign love. But I know she does not see it that way, and at least right now, her jealousy is still too strong. I'll tell her one day. Perhaps not as poetically, but bluntly. The details, but not yet. One more thing. When I let slip the detail, my girlfriend asked, was she pretty? And the first thing that fell from my mouth was, I only date beautiful women. And she smiled, so I guess I dodged that unanswerable question. Story 10. I've never told my girlfriend that I'm bisexual or pansexual. She's been cheated on a few times before, and it's left her feeling really insecure and worried that I'll leave her for someone prettier, funnier, or more intelligent. It's got to the point where she's had to go on medication and get therapy. We've worked on it, and our relationship is in a good place and she feels more secure. I'm afraid to tell her because it would really basically add the other 50% of the population to the list of people she could overthink about, whether I like them more. It's also a moot point because I would never cheat on her or leave her for somebody else. But I hate lying to her, even if it's mostly by omission and have to basically go back in the closet. Story 11. When we first started dating, I almost broke up with him because, despite being the same age, we had vastly different upbringings. Despite loving him as a person, I found some aspects of his behavior to be quite immature. There were times I wished I had met him in 3 or 4 years because I knew he was going to be an incredible person when he grew up, but sometimes I felt like I was mentoring him. I've never directly said, hey, I think you're being immature, but I've gently steered him away from some of the more childish aspects of his behavior, such as being less judgmental and entitled. Over the course of our relationship, I've really watched him become a much kinder and more humble person. Story 12. Some of her sleeping around and the way she acted with guys before we started dating bothers me. She had a longtime boyfriend and then broke up with him and immediately went on a party spree, which I understand, but I personally know almost all the guys she slept with, and 1 or 2 of them still bother me on occasion. She hasn't given me any reason to mistrust her, but it still gets under my skin. Some of it probably has to do with the fact that she's the only person I've ever had intimacy with. Story 13. I kept the fact that I had any debt at all a secret from my long-term girlfriend. I'm a schmuck for doing it, but I always told her I was debt-free. I use my credit card all the time, which I then pay off in full each month when I get the bill. This is all factual, but I do have some school debt, which is thankfully low interest and not a huge amount. It was down to about $13,000 when I finally told her. I told her the truth about it in the month leading up to me proposing. She was really good about it, and actually gets more upset over minor things when I believe she might leave me for hiding it. Story 14. I didn't keep this from my wife for very long, only until my son was old enough to not need prune juice anymore. My son had trouble pooping for a while, and the doctor told us to give him prune juice with his formula to help. So I gave him his prune juice or formula mixture about 30 minutes before I had to go to work so that she would have to change the vast majority of poopy diapers. Basically, for about 8 months, I hardly had to change any poopy diapers. It was awesome. Story 15. Throw away because reasons. I've cheated on her once. My best friend's ex, who is now his girlfriend again, and I kissed at a house party last year. We both decided, no, this can't happen. And that was the end of it. Since then, that girl got back together with my best friend, and my relationship is as good as it ever was, so I don't want to ruin it by telling the truth. It's funny because I don't feel as guilty as I think I should, if that makes sense. I don't know why we kissed. Might have been the alcohol or the fact that we were always close and good friends, but it didn't have any meaning for me, and neither did it for her, according to her. I love my current girlfriend, and I intend to marry her. I didn't, and don't ever doubt that. I'm not willing to risk that for one small mistake that ended up changing nothing. Story 16. When I met my current fiancé online, I was still living with my ex. I told him that I was living with roommates. My ex worked night shifts, and out of boredom, I would often get online. My fiancé and I ended up breaking up online for a bit. My ex and I moved across town together. When I started talking to my fiancé online again, I knew he was the one. I practically kicked my ex out, took him off the lease, and changed the locks. 7 years later, we're together. I bought a house and are getting married next year. Story 17. This has to do with my emotions more than anything. It knows basically everything about me, but because of mental stuff, I feel like certain things would be a burden. Until recently, and I'm thankful it stopped because I was sad as heck, everyone thought that my best friend was dating my boyfriend. They both told those people no, and that helped a lot. It's just that it kind of felt like, even to an outside party, I wasn't good enough. There's also the fact that I'm kind of just there. He and my best friend are close, and I would never want to change that. I'm worse with my own friends. It's just that deep down I'm kind of jealous of how easily they interact with people. I started opening up about it, so it isn't a well-kept secret, but I kind of just feel left out. This was a giant mind gurgle, so I'm sorry if it's hard to read. Story 18. I'm married, which maybe makes it worse, but I have pretty awful mental health problems. I brush it off as having a little seasonal depression, but it's actually chronic depression and anxiety that I've dealt with on and off for years and years. I've just become very, very efficient at masking it because I grew up in poverty with a single father and didn't have room for emotions when everything was dire all the time. We're doing really well for our age. Great jobs, a beautiful home, a cool city, everything, but it just never really goes away, no matter what you have or don't have. I've been to therapy and it helps, but the thought of scaring him by telling him about all the awful thoughts I live with isn't something I want to do. Story 19. My boyfriend of 4 years doesn't know I was in an open relationship with someone else the first few times we slept together. Long story short, my and my ex's pool of people came from our extended community, his frat, my sorority, or coop. So most people we would end up with already knew our dynamic. When I met my boyfriend, I didn't feel like I needed to explain since I thought it was going to be a one-night situation. Soon after, my ex and I split, my current boyfriend kept inviting me over, and the rest is history. We now live together. Do I tell him? Story 20. I was getting through a rough patch during my first year of college and ended up skipping a lot of my classes toward the end of the semester. I failed a few classes, which tanked my GPA and made me even more depressed, to the point that I dropped out for a semester and didn't get back until this past spring. I'm doing better now and finally found a major I can be happy with, but I feel like I'm way behind everyone else since I either failed my core classes and now have to retake them or didn't take them in the first place. Meanwhile, he went in knowing what he wanted to do and is pretty close to moving on from community college, while I'm stuck playing catch-up and trying not to have a repeat for the last 2 years. Don't get me wrong, I'm proud of him for getting so far, and I don't resent him or anything, but I can't help but feel inadequate in comparison. I know he wouldn't judge me for what happened, but still don't want him to find out just how bad of a place I was in, especially since I never told him I was struggling in the first place. Story 21. At the time when we had been together for about 2 or 3 months, she was really annoying. She was constantly texting and calling me every time I came back from school, among other things. I wasn't able to do my hobbies and focus on studying because I was spending so much time with her. It's a long-distance relationship. I wanted to have some free time, and I get it, she loves me, but on the other side, I want to be independent, and I want her to be independent. I don't believe in the "you are my other half" sentiment. At the time, I was really considering a breakup. Recently, due to my packed schedule with a ton of assignments for my university and long working hours during the summer, as well as my inability to come and visit her, she considered a breakup too. Eventually, we overcame this, and we have a good, healthy long-distance relationship. Story 22. This one may seem quite simple, but it's quite funny. He only broke up a day ago, at the moment I'm writing this. We were together and I stayed overnight. He'd go off to work in the morning and I could have a little lie-in and then leave. But he always cleaned his flat before I left. I stayed over about once a week, and as I didn't pay rent for using a shower, food, electricity, etc., I would clean his flat every time I stayed over. I mean, thoroughly. I'd do all the dishes, clean the oven, and scrub the floor. I cleaned everything. I also thought it would be nice for him to come home to a clean flat after work. One day I decided to light a candle to make the flat smell nice, and I was using a feather duster on his desk. I knocked the candle over and the wax went everywhere. I had a matte black desk, so the shiny candle wax stood out. Grabbed a knife and tried to saw it off. I used my fingernails and was there for at least an hour. It just wouldn't scrape off. I ended up really scratching up the table. Didn't say anything and just put his mouse pad over the top. He discovered it a few weeks later, but just assumed I used a greasy cloth to wipe it. I was too scared to tell him because I can't handle it when people are mad at me. He still doesn't know to this day. This happened a few months ago. Story 23. I'm horrible when it comes to showing emotions, so I hide them. I do show them, I'm just bad at it. I'm also hiding a huge Valentine's Day plan that never happened due to complications on her end. I'm a literal mess when it comes to emotions, as I tend to attempt to suppress them. But after the relationships I've had and all the bullying, it's become an instinct. Hence, I don't rush things and make sure there's a friendship established first so that I know I can trust them. I know I can let my shields down, which are better than a damn wall and lighter, and allow them to explore my heart, so to speak. I'm a complicated person. Who knew? Story 24. I loaned my brother $310 to get tires in his car, just 3 days after we had started speaking again. We had gone 2 months without speaking after a fight. He paid me back within a few hours of me lending it, but my boyfriend has absolutely no respect for my brother, and 99% of the time it's for good reason. I think if he found out I loaned him money, he'd be absolutely livid. This is because he knows my brother uses my anxiety to manipulate me, and I recognize that, but I literally can't say no or I'll actually retch from the anxiety of having disappointed someone, and my boyfriend hates seeing me being used. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 25. Using an alternate account because she knows my main account. She still doesn't know just how much of a hateful, spiteful person I've become under the surface. Don't take this the wrong way. I do still love her and I don't take anything out on her. I try to keep the soft teddy bear facade on as much as I can, but things didn't end very well with my ex, the first relationship I ever had. He basically hid that they had discovered they were trans for a solid 6 months before coming out and tearing down everything I thought I had concreted in place. It really destroyed me emotionally. I managed to keep things neutral until last winter and I just started spiraling downward. I have obsessive thoughts, complete emotional breakdowns coupled with directed rage and heart-pounding anxiety when I see or hear anything even remotely related to them. It's made worse by the fact that I'm in a rather small town. We both go to the same college and they now live in the same house as their cousin, who's my best friend. So I'm basically constantly exposed to them and their lifestyle whether I want to be or not. Walking by the parking lot literally every single day and seeing their grandpa's hand-me-down car is disgusting. I won't get into details, but let's just say my mind has gone to some very dark places in a self-destructive loop about how much more successful they'll always be compared to me. You're self-sufficient, have a decent car and job, and are always on the honor roll. I'm still living with my parents, have never had a real job, and usually manage a 50-50 mix of A's and B's. I've ended up down some paths about how exactly I'd like to make them feel even a portion of the pain I have that shouldn't ever be repeated. I don't ever want to let my current girlfriend into this side of me because I'm worried it'll start weighing on her too or break her view of who I am. And add a bunch of undue stress for no particular reason. Story 26. I am married. The first time she went on a vacation when we were dating, I went to see her before she left. On my way out of the car, I saw a stuffed monkey holding a giant heart-shaped object that said Happy Valentine's Day. I had gotten this for my ex-girlfriend for Valentine's Day, but she broke up with me before I gave it to her. This was in July, so I cut the heart out, gave her the monkey, and told her I got it for her as a gift because I would miss her. She loved it, and still shows it to people and says it was the first gift I ever got her. She takes it with her everywhere she travels without me and sleeps with it. She has no idea. Story 27. This secret isn't from my significant other, but from my best friend, and when I say my best friend, I'm talking about Turk and JD from the show Scrubs. About once a year, his mom and sister come out to visit for a week as they live in Pennsylvania and we're in Indiana. Usually I just let him have his family time, but this year he pushed for me to come. I figured it was because I'm usually over there every weekend and he knows I'm having a rough time as I go through my divorce. So I get there and he starts sharing his Yuengling, a beer that we can't get in Indy that his mom and sister brought for him. Eventually, everybody goes home, except for me, who has now been convinced to drink screwdrivers. Eventually, his mom goes to bed, and shortly after he and his wife head to bed, his sister and I stay up talking and chatting and whatnot. I learned how much of a friend he really considers me and some other things I didn't really know. Felt really good to find out that he feels the same about me as I do about him. Then I fooled around with his sister. I really don't think he'd care if he knew, but I feel bad about it anyway, and I don't really plan to tell him anytime soon, at the very least. Story 28. I cook a lot, and she used to help. She was always on a diet or watching what she ate, and I don't know why, she only weighed in at around 65 kgs. She used to find alternatives to sugar and oils and dishes, weird health food stuff that had no calories and things like that. I always used to add sugar and fat when she wasn't looking. For a year, she was convinced that the health food alternatives were just as good as the real thing. I told her when we broke up because when you have the breakup fight, you finally say things that you have been holding on for too long. I didn't think it was a big deal. I was wrong. She cried and cried and cried. It was hilarious. Story 29. I can barely stand my wife. When we were dating, I knew I didn't love her, but she was pretty and witty. I'm a laid-back geek who was flattered to have such attention. Once we got engaged, she got fat and dull. I decided to go through with it since I had already spent a fortune on the wedding and engagement. Spent the first year of my marriage hoping things would get better, but not believing they would. She fed off my negative energy and got annoying. I spent the next year of my marriage working up the nerve to get a divorce. Then she got pregnant. I love my daughter, and she's the only reason we're still together. My wife and I don't really fight. I say I love you every morning and sleep next to her every night. We do things as a family and are at least cordial and fairly warm toward each other. We're seeing a therapist, but since we never really had anything together, there's not much to hope for except to stay together until our daughter is old enough that the split won't be traumatic. Story 30. A Korean girl that I'm crazy over came over once when my then girlfriend was out of town on a Vegas trip. We clicked really well. We just never both been single at the same time. Moreover, she had just broken up with her boyfriend that night and she came over to my place. She was still dressed in her clubbing outfit and looked hot as hell. I just don't have it in me to cheat in a relationship. Golden rule and all that. I'm now married to my then girlfriend, but I still regret not sleeping with a Korean girl. We have our differences, but I always wonder what life would be like if I'd married the Korean one instead. Probably wouldn't be as bad if my wife didn't only like cookie-cutter intimacy and the Korean girl wasn't as freaky as all hell. Story 31. Not that anyone will read this now, but throw away because my significant other sometimes reads Reddit. Anyway, I met my significant other several years ago. She was with an idiot who never really went to college and dropped out of high school. I owned my own IT business and seemed to have everything in order. She left the idiot she was with, and we were later married, 4 years ago, and still are to this day. So, what's my lie? I never graduated from college. Sure, I went for 3 years, but I never finished. She still believes I graduated to this day. It gets hairy sometimes when she talks to my parents or grandparents, but somehow I've managed to keep this lie going for close to 7 years now. I've also gotten my brother and most of my extended family to believe this lie. The only person who knows for sure is my mother, but for some reason she has yet to rat me out. The closest I've ever come to having my house of cards fall down is when she talked to my grandmother at Christmas time. My grandmother was old, 79 at the time, and for some reason she just went with it. At first, my grandmother was asking a lot of questions about it and it seemed like she was going to call me out on it. Eventually, she went with it and believed the story, hook, line, and sinker. She even wrote me a graduation check because she thought I didn't want to make a big deal about graduating college. So now the lie went from a small one, told to my future wife, to a large one that covers everyone in the family. I've had job offers from family friends based on the fact that I have a college diploma that I have had to turn down for fear that a tiny amount of digging will unravel my story. And really, it's not even that big of a deal that I don't have a degree. I started the relationship with this one lie, and I don't think I'll ever be able to tell her. In secret, I've begun to take classes again so I can get a degree. I'm hoping that I can finish it in the next year or so. I still won't ever tell anyone. It's really hard to go back to school in secret. I take as many classes as I can online and often tell her that I have to go into work on a Saturday. That's when I do my homework. Luckily, I still work in IT, so it all seems plausible. Story 32. My ex-girlfriend studied abroad in London for a semester last year. 1 month into it, she decided that she wanted to take a break, even though we had planned on moving in together when she got back. We talked pretty regularly throughout this whole situation, and I could feel her becoming more and more distant. I had a sneaking suspicion that the reason she wanted this break was to sleep around in Europe, but of course I didn't really ask. When she got home, she was really cold and distant from me. I tried to reel her back in a few times, and after about 4 or 5 months, she finally warmed up, and it seemed like things were finally back to normal. One day after we finally reconciled and it felt like a real relationship, I was at her place. She left for work early and I slept in. I woke up and saw her Facebook page open on my laptop and I couldn't resist snooping, hoping to find some answer to her craziness after she came back. I found what I was looking for. She'd been intimate with this guy online from Ireland for months after she came back, but I told him they needed to stop about a month prior to me finding out about it. I knew that if I told her, I knew she would flip out and I would never see her again, but I wasn't really sure if I wanted to be with someone who was virtually cheating on me. She moved to New York about a month ago, and we decided it was dumb to try to keep a long-distance relationship going since the last time we tried, it didn't work out very well. 3 days ago, we were talking on the phone and let it all out. I told her I knew about the guy in Ireland because I was snooping around on her Facebook page a couple of months ago. She told me she would never be able to trust me again, and I told her she was a cheating witch. We decided to stop speaking to each other. Story 33. That I had weight loss surgery. I'm a very private person, so I don't share it with anyone but my closest friends and family. At the time, my now husband and I were only coworkers. When anyone at work would ask how I lost the weight, I would keep it vague and say, by eating less. By the time we started dating 3 years later, it wasn't brought up again because he had known me through the weight loss. I did tell him at one point that I had a procedure that would help with weight loss, but I was in the midst of a conversation about something else, so it wasn't a pointed, this is some news to pay attention to talk. My surgery is not the standard stomach stapling or band, so I can eat normal meal portions today and not draw attention to it. Story 34. My ex was my first everything. First kiss, first time, and first girlfriend. I told her that I'd gone out with at least 4 or 5 girls before her and had had intimacy multiple times before her. I had to keep up that lie for the 2 years that we dated, and she even said to one of my best friends at a party, "Protest used to be such a player, huh? Getting all the girls like that." Thank goodness my best friend didn't hysterically laugh at me right then and there. Of course, she did right after she left to use the bathroom. I still don't know to this day whether being honest with her about her being my first everything would have been a good or bad thing. Story 35. Oh god. Okay, this is a really bad story about stuff I hid from my first love. Basically, I cheated on him a bunch of times. I never let anyone penetrate me, but I was down for absolutely anything else from the right person for the last couple of years of our relationship. It all started when I graduated from college. I went to work for 60 hours a week at an electronics store. Meanwhile, I was working a dangerous entry-level job, going to work intoxicated and spiked every day. I've never done grass and very rarely drank. The mixture of me working a job I hated and him basically being immature in my eyes made me value him less. I would argue with him about his substance use on the job quite frequently, as it scared me. Finally, being an immature 18-year-old, this spilled over into me complaining to a girlfriend of mine at work, who basically said that she knew a guy that she used to work with who has seen me around and thinks I'm really hot. So, long story short, after a bit of social pressure, I cracked and decided to meet this guy. We went out for dinner, then we went to his place. Lived with his dad in a mansion. No joke, the place had 1,000,000 bedrooms and was all furnished beautifully. He told me that he was with a girl for 6 years, but she left him. I told him that I was having problems with my boyfriend. I was like water off a duck's back to him, and before I knew it, we were making out. He mumbled about how I was the hottest girl he'd ever been with and then finished without me even doing anything, which I found to be really flattering, honestly. The next morning, we had breakfast with his dad, who was staring at me like, holy crap, the whole time. I never talked again. He asked me out, but I said no. I never told my first love about this. Then a year later, I ran off to college in a city an hour away. His cousin and best friend told him that people in college are loose and that since I'm living on campus, it's just a matter of time before I belong to someone else. This culminated in us fighting every day about his substance use in unsafe places, about how he needed to know exactly where I was at all times out of paranoia, and about him being annoyed that I had even moved out of our hometown in the first place. I came home every weekend to visit him, but it wasn't enough. I should have left him right then and there, but I was too stupid and immature to know what to do, really. A couple of months into my first semester, we broke up briefly, so I dated 2 different guys briefly. One of them was so inhibited and inexperienced that he was too afraid to even kiss me, while the other dragged me to my room. My casual relationship with a man continued for a couple of weeks after we got back together. I never told him about either of them. At the end of my second semester, I was walking home at night when I spotted 2 guys skateboarding in the school's parking lot. I decided to stay and watch. One of them tried a really dangerous move and then broke his wrist. I called for a taxi for them and they asked if I wanted to come along. I said yes and spoke to the other guy in the waiting room for the next 8 hours. Then we all drove home. The other guy said that he felt a connection between us and that we should date. I said okay. The next day, we went out for lunch, then I took him back to my room and I let him eat me out. We went everywhere together, and I basically stopped going home for 2 months. I told my first love that it was because I was busy with finals, but I was mostly lying. I broke it off with him a month into the summer because of my first love, and I decided to get an apartment together in the city that I was going to college in following semester. I naively thought that would fix our problems. The week after we moved in together, his parents revealed to me that he did not really love me anymore and that he was just living with me because they had kicked him out of their place and he had nowhere else to go. I asked him if it was true, and he responded by giving me the cold shoulder for the next 6 weeks. I'm not being figurative here, I'm being literal. I would come home after class and he would glare at me in disgust and go on the balcony and smoke for hours, even in the wintertime. The week before my birthday, I got an email from someone in the same program as me asking if I knew the solutions to something. I said yes, and it started a dialogue that ended with us going to a museum together on my birthday. We became best friends after that, and I was hoping to fix things with my first love and never cheat again because I was really starting to realize why I was doing that and I wanted to stop, but then the guy fell in love with me. I tried to stay away from him, but because we were in the same program, he was everywhere I was. Everyone knew that he loved me and that I didn't. I was in a program full of men. There were only 2 other women in our entire program, and this boy happened to be extremely well-liked and popular, so even some of the professors looked down on me after that. I wouldn't relent, though. Just before Christmas time, I told the boy to screw right off, and I went home for Christmas. During which time, my first love and I got into a massive argument. I thought he might have known about my cheating in the past, but he said, I know you have always been true to me, but I don't believe in you. I don't want you to have a career. I want you to get married right away, and I want someone to be the mother of my children. Meanwhile, I did not want children at all, and I didn't want to get married until I was established in my career. In the end, we did try to work things out, but it went horribly. A month into my 4th semester, I stayed out late studying with some friends, and he emailed me asking me never to come home again. People smuggled me to their dorms for the next 3 months, and I basically just slept on the floor. The guy who was in love with me caught wind of this and redoubled his efforts to get my attention. Finally, I relented and we went out for dinner on Valentine's Day, and then we made out. This was just a couple of weeks after he asked me not to come home. 3 months later, school ended for the year, and I finally bothered to pick up my things from my ex's apartment. He called me that night, crying his eyes out, talking about how he was hoping that we could patch things up. We talked about memories and cried for 3 hours and said that we were still in love with each other, then decided to never talk to each other again. This other guy and I have been together for 5 years now, but there are a bunch of things about me that he doesn't know. First off, he doesn't know that I've ever cheated on any of my partners. Nobody does, in fact. Secondly, I admit that despite my best efforts, I've never loved him as much as I loved the first guy. Third, I went into counseling for a year without anyone knowing, and I learned that I was cheating on my ex because my dad horribly mistreated and constantly humiliated my mom when I was a kid, and I used to watch him cheat on my mom with anyone he could. So I basically didn't have any faith in anyone, nor did I ever really believe anyone's promises because my dad was also a pathological liar, and I always tried to beat people to the punch by screwing them over first, so to speak. Story 36. A year after we were married, I met this girl in a video game forum. It turns out she's one of the most gorgeous ladies I've ever met. Not to mention she's smart and plays video games. I told my new friend I was married, but I didn't tell my wife about my new friend. My wife eventually found out, and our marriage is over. It was really over before that for various other reasons. My wife doesn't know about the crazy phone intimacy we had. It's funny how she thought I had intimacy with her, but we never even kissed. Story 37. My ex had a lot of issues, and I tried to be supportive and helpful. I told him that he was a good person with a good heart and that things would get better, but I really thought he was a screw-up. He was mean, manipulative, and avoided any sort of responsibility. Even though I wish it weren't true, he's a loser who will probably never do anything productive with his life because he spends more time blaming others than being a man and dealing with his problems. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.